As a super first-class gang of spies, these people were well organized and had a lot of manpower, especially the hackers. There were dozens of them, and they were all world-class hackers. Steven was only one person. No matter how strong he was no match for a large group of people. Even with the help of the artificial intelligence Zero, Steven could only barely keep the most confidential information safe. The other defense platforms had already lost control. Fortunately, the firewall in the past was well prepared. Under such circumstances, the opponent wouldn't be able to take control of it. Instead, the firewall would temporarily stop operating, waiting for the person with the authority to connect again. While Steven was busy sweating profusely, he didn't forget to ask Callie a question. "Have you contacted Harry?" Callie shook her head and said, "You asked the obvious. The entire system is paralyzed. How do you expect me to contact him?" "What do you think happened today? Was the system destroyed, or did someone want to destroy the production base in Industrial Island?" Steven asked. Callie still shook her head. "How would I know? But I feel that the island is in chaos now. These people must have different motives." Steven was deep in thought. After a while, he suddenly said, "Do you think their target is the Research Institute?" After saying that, he smiled. "How is that possible? There is nothing valuable here." Callie was silent for a while and said, "That's possible. Maybe it's because of the technology here." Steven immediately jumped up in horror. "After what you said, I think it's very possible. Right now, we don't have many guards here." After saying that, he got up and paced back and forth anxiously. "No, we have to think of a way to protect this place. At the very least, we can't let anyone break in." Callie looked at Steven, who was like an ant on a hot pan. She said lightly, "No one can break in. I've already closed all the security doors." Steven let out a sigh of relief. It's okay. Fortunately, you're thinking ahead. After the security doors are closed, the whole Research Institute is like a fortress. No one can break in." When the Research Institute was built, Harry knew that this was the core of his technology. Therefore, he considered many dangerous situations. One of them was that after the security outside was crippled, the Research Institute could only rely on the sturdy walls to defend until reinforcements arrived. In the entire Research Institute, all the windows and passageways were installed with solid metal doors and windows. As long as they were closed, no one would be able to break in from the outside. However, not everything worked the way they were planned. The Research Institute built by Harry was no exception, but it was abnormally strong. No one could break in from the outside. However, the spies planted by the Council were in the Research Institute today. When the commercial spies came to the Research Institute, with the help of the other spies, it was effortless for them to open the passageway. While Steven was still rejoicing at the firmness of the Research Institute, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. It was a warning to everyone that the passageway had been opened unauthorized. At this moment, Steven's face turned pale. "Didn't you say that as long as all the passageways are closed, no one will be able to enter?" Steven was so scared that he asked Callie nervously. Callie said expressionlessly as usual, "Yes, but it doesn't mean that they can't open it from the inside." This sentence made Steven's face turn even paler. "So it means that there is a traitor?" "Most likely, but we still don't know who the traitor is." "Harry, come and save me," Steven shouted in despair. Callie said calmly, "There's no need to be afraid. It's not like we don't have the ability to defend ourselves." Steven said, "How can we resist? With just me and you? How can I defend against those people with malicious intentions?" Callie slowly said, "Don't forget, there are still a few unfinished bionic humans in the laboratory." Steven suddenly became excited. "Yes, how could I forget that there is still this? There is a bionic human here. I'm not afraid of anyone." After saying that, he immediately became dispirited. "But those few bionic humans have not been assembled yet." Callie said calmly, "As long as we hurry before those people find us, it will be fine." Steven jumped up all of a sudden. "Then what are we waiting for? Quickly go and assemble them. This is a life and death moment." After saying that, he ran into the laboratory like a gust of wind. On the experiment table, there were a few new bionic humans that were currently being developed. Because they were in the research and development stage, they were all placed on the experiment table as parts. Now, Steven and Callie were ready to use their fastest speed to assemble and defend against the people who invaded the Research Institute. At this moment, the elite team of Wolfguard that Harry had formed had just started moving towards the Industrial Island. Their purpose of coming here was to find out about the situation on the island. Then, they would go to the underground warehouse and activate all the bionic humans inside. They would conduct a carpet search on the island and find all the enemies. Because the entire industrial island system had already lost contact with Harry's central control room. Therefore, the only way to awaken the bionic humans was through the Wolf Guard's elite team. In the Research Institute, Stephen and Callie were quickly assembling a few bionic humans in the laboratory. At the entrance of the Research Institute, after the spies opened the door, the commercial spies gang entered one after another. After the bandits entered, they all sighed. The layout inside was too high-tech. "Enough nonsense. Hurry up and get down to business. Don't touch anything other than the target," a man shouted. "Yes, boss, but where is the technical information we're looking for?" said a man. The traitor spoke. "I know where it is. Just follow me." This spy had been recruited when Harry's Research Institute had been completed and he was looking for talent. He seemed to be a technical talent who was focused on research, but his true identity was a spy that the council had placed in Harry's company. However, this person was a researcher in the outer circle and was only responsible for the technical work of Harry's civilian products. As for the most confidential bionic human technology, as well as artificial intelligence and super batteries, they were things he wasn't authorized to work on. And that was, the commercial spies didn't know about the traitor from the very beginning. They were preparing to blow the door open at the entrance of the Research Institute, but they didn't expect it to be opened from the inside. However, after thinking about it, they felt that it might be the arrangement of the employer. Anyway, the mission was going smoothly, so there was no need to ask about it in such a tense moment. As for the spies, there was also a mistake. He originally wanted to contact the group of people from the royal family. However, because they were afraid of being exposed, they didn't directly contact each other. Tonight, the island was in chaos. The traitor naturally thought that these people were the people he needed to contact. The two of them walked together in a daze, and no one carefully asked about the other party's true identity. The reason why such a situation occurred was mainly because the time taken for the invasion operation to be planned was too little. Because the main purpose was to snatch the technical information here, and not to fight with Harry head-on. That was why they needed to quickly get the information before Harry's reinforcements arrived, and then retreat. Because of the urgency of the time, neither of them had the time to confirm their identities, and so they mixed up. The traitor brought the commercial spies to the information room, while the other business spies who had caused trouble continued to create chaos outside. The island's security personnel were exhausted, and no one had the time to come to the Research Institute to see if there was a problem. "This Research Institute is too big. How much did it cost to build?" After walking for more than 10 minutes and still not reaching the database, the commercial spies couldn't help but complain. The traitor laughed in his heart. It was truly a bunch of ignorant things. He said, "Soon we'll be there in a few more levels." Little did he know that these commercial spies were used to seeing high-end places. The main reason why they complained was that they weren't keen on walking. Now, the entire Research Institute had lost its power, and all the elevators could no longer be used. They could only use their flashlights to cover their journey. The limited backup emergency power supply was only provided to a few of the most important places in the Institute. Thus, they could only walk to the database in the depths of the 10 or so underground floors. I say, what is this Research Institute doing? Along the way, I don't think there's anything special about it. The traitor heard the question and replied, "The places we are going through now are all unimportant research laboratories, mainly for civilian research and development. The 10 or so floors underground are the most confidential places here." Walking to a security door, the spies stopped. The traitor said, "From here on out, I don't have the authority to pass. I need to rely on you guys." Harry's Research Institute looked like it was a building, but it was actually divided into two parts. Most of the research rooms on the ground weren't important, and underground was where all the important information was kept. Although the Research Institute didn't have electricity, the door system was run on an independent power system. The emergency power would also be supplied to the access gate system as usual, so without the access card, the traitor wouldn't be able to enter. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" commercial spies said unhappily. Then he waved his hand, and a tall and thin man walked out with a researcher. He took out a few electronic devices from his backpack and started scanning the door. After some time, seeing that there was no movement, the head of the group couldn't help but ask, "Can you open it? Why can't you keep your cool? Don't worry. I'll Although this door is a bit troublesome, it's difficult, but it won't stop me, the lockpicking king. The tall man was very confident. As a member of this group of people who relied on their skills, this person's specialty was lockpicking. He fiddled with his instrument a few times in a blur, then looked at the scanning area above the gate. After a while, he heard a beep. The door slowly opened. "Okay, the lock is open. Let's go," the lockpicking king said with a smile. Just as everyone was about to walk in, the leader stopped them. "Wait, you go in first." These words were directed at the traitor. The traitor said unhappily, "What, are you afraid that I will set you up? It's not like there are any traps here. What's there to be afraid of?" The traitor was very unhappy, but the leader held his weapon and pointed it at his head. With a threatening look in his eyes, the traitor obediently walked in. "We don't know where this person came from. Everyone, be careful." It turned out that the leader of the thieves never believed this traitor was on their side. Even if they knew that this was a spy hired by their employer, the commercial spies wouldn't treat him as one of their own. For these people, if an accident were to happen, it would be a disaster. The spies nervously stepped into the underground passage. They weren't sure if there really were no traps here. He saw that there was nothing wrong with the traitor walking in, and that there were no alarms that were triggered. Only then did the group of spies cautiously follow him in. The moment they entered, Callie and Stephen already knew their whereabouts, in the Underground Research Institute. Due to the emergency power supply, the entrances and monitoring systems were still running normally. Furthermore, the systems here were independent from the outside world, so they weren't affected by the hackers' attacks. In Harry's Underground Research Institute, Stephen was busy assembling the bionic humans while nervously watching the surveillance videos of the various passageways. When he discovered that a group of people had barged in, Stephen's hands began to tremble nervously. "There are so many of them." "Don't panic. After assembling the bionic humans, you don't have to be afraid." Callie was as calm as ever. However, Stephen couldn't be as fearless as Callie, even though he kept saying that he wasn't afraid. However, the constant trembling of the fat on his body betrayed the fact that he was actually panicking. How did these people come in? The security system can't even let a fly enter without noticing it. How could they come in so quietly? Stephen couldn't understand. But when he saw the spies on the monitor, he understood everything. "It's Peter, the traitor. Is he a guide or a spy?" Stephen gritted his teeth and said. Callie heard him and turned to look at the surveillance camera. "Peter is now bringing this group of people in. Without a doubt, they are spies." "I just don't know who his master is," Stephen said angrily. Callie said, "Don't worry about Peter. He has already come in anyway. Quickly assemble the bionic humans." Stephen nodded and said, "Yes, when we assemble the latest bionic humans, we will kill these intruders." Under the research and development of Harry's researchers, the bionic human had been developed from the first generation to an upgraded version. The second generation was a true killing machine. Its main purpose wasn't to interact with people on a daily basis to become a family assistant, but it was a machine that focused on fighting. Their combat ability was several dozen times stronger than the previous generation's bionic humans, and their ability to withstand blows was 100 times stronger. However, this bionic human model had yet to be fully developed and was currently in the initial stage of research and development. Fortunately, all the spare parts of the prototype had been produced. Now, it was just waiting for Stephen and Callie to assemble and activate it. "What is the purpose of these people invading the research lab? Are they looking for our technology, or are they here to kidnap us?" Stephen asked. Callie said lightly, "It's most likely because of the technology." "How can you be so sure?" Stephen asked curiously. "It's very simple. They went to the bottom level of the information room." After hearing this, Stephen laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha, these idiots. The database is the most protected room in this entire facility. Even nuclear bombs can't open it." Sure enough, after the commercial spies finally found the database, the person known as the lockpicking king. After fiddling with the door for a long time, the door of the database didn't budge at all. "Can you do it or not? There isn't much time left for us," Timothy urged. "Don't worry. What if these are really difficult to deal with? This is the first time I've come across such a door, but it can still be opened, believe me," the lockpicking king said while sweating profusely. Although he looked confident, he was actually panicking. In fact, he didn't have the confidence to open it, but he didn't want to admit it. After waiting for a long time, Timothy saw that there was still no movement from him, so he couldn't hold his breath anymore. Their time of action was limited, so they couldn't all waste it here. They had to get the technology before Harry's reinforcements arrived. No, we have to think of another way. That person, Peter, right? Help me make a decision, Timothy asked. The traitor Peter didn't have any ideas. He was just an outer circle researcher. When faced with the most confidential database, he was also unable to help. However, seeing Timothy point the weapon in his hand at him intentionally or unintentionally, Peter couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Well, I can't open this door either, but I have an idea to open it. Oh, then hurry up and say it. Time is money, my friend, Timothy urged. There are 2 senior research supervisors here. They must still be here. As long as we find these 2 and force them to open the door, it will be fine. Oh, you mean these 2 research directors can really open the door? Yes, only they have the highest authority here. Usually the boss wouldn't come here. The research institute is managed by them. All right, I got it. Do you have photos of these 2? Yes, they are in my phone. Timothy sighed after seeing the photo. He then ordered his men to follow him. Hurry up and find these. Stephen, who was looking at the surveillance camera with a sinister smile on his face, laughed happily when he saw that these people were unable to open the door to the database. However, when he saw Peter came up with an idea to find the 2 of them, Stephen couldn't laugh anymore. To think that I even drank with him in the past is disgusting, and he actually brought people to look for us. Stephen was so angry that his head was about to explode. Callie stared at Stephen and said, "When you drank with him, did you say something you shouldn't have said?" Instantly, Stephen broke out in cold sweat. There was a problem with him. He was usually very introverted and didn't drink much. The main problem was that he liked to talk when he was drunk. The problem was that when he woke up from the alcohol, he couldn't remember what he said. After Callie asked this question, Stephen suddenly remembered that he seemed to have really been used by Peter. He had drunk a few times before, but Stephen himself wasn't sure. He had said some secrets that he shouldn't have said. Stephen was certain that he had really misspoken after drinking and said something he shouldn't say. Thinking of this, Stephen fiercely slapped himself twice. After all this time, I'm still the cause of all of our problems. Callie ignored Stephen's self-blame. She said lightly, "You better focus on helping me. Those people are looking for us." Oh, right, sorry, Stephen suddenly realized. This was the most dangerous moment for the 2 of them. The intruders couldn't open the door of the database room. If they wanted to find them to open the door, they had to have the strength to resist if they didn't want to be threatened by these people. The traitor Peter was leading a group of spies in the Underground Research Institute, running around like headless flies. Peter was lost when walking around the lower levels. Of course, the technical staff Harry trusted the most were Callie and Stephen. However, other than the 2 of them, there were a few other people in the huge Underground Research Institute. They were also Harry's loyal subordinates. Fortunately, other than Callie and Stephen, who had always stayed here, the rest of the people had left tonight. Therefore, the group of people who had invaded couldn't find a single person even after searching for a long time in the basement of more than 10 floors. Although they had seen a lot of research results, it had also aroused the interest of this group of people from the commercial spies. As long as they scoured this place, once they left, they would be able to find interested buyers, and they would be able to earn a large sum of money. However, their task today wasn't to obtain these irrelevant technologies. Instead, it was to obtain super batteries and artificial intelligence. Thus, these people could only watch as wealth flashed before their eyes. They could only look for the 2 of them in vain. Fortunately, Peter was still useful. Although he had never been to the underground facility of the Research Institute, he was still a member of this place, and some areas were still very familiar to him. According to the various signs on the door, Peter quickly locked onto the general location of Stephen and Callie. "I know where they are! Follow me!" Peter shouted excitedly and ran with the intruders. Stephen and Callie's assembly had also reached the final step. Both sides were fighting for time to see who had the upper hand first. If the intruders found the 2 of them first, then the 2 who didn't have any means to fight back could only surrender without putting up a fight. But if the bionic human was installed earlier, then the intruders would only be like lambs to the slaughter. When Peter confirmed the location of the 2 people and pushed open the laboratory door, the sound of the bionic human's activation rang in everyone's ears. "All systems are functioning normally, waiting for instructions." The cold metallic voice of the bionic human rang out. All the intruders, including Peter, turned pale with fright. Peter had seen bionic humans before, but he had never seen a second-generation bionic human before. This brand-new upgraded killing machine was covered in solid armor. It had sharp edges and was abnormally ferocious and scary. Therefore, when the bionic human stood up, the intruders who had already barged into the laboratory subconsciously took a few steps back and exited the laboratory. Steven, on the other hand, was wild with joy. He shouted at the bionic human who was waiting for instructions. "Intruders, destroy them!" "Command received. Begin execution." A cold metallic voice rang out once again. Because it was a newly assembled bionic human and had yet to be connected to the artificial intelligence Zero, it could only rely on the built-in secondary intelligence to operate. Therefore, in terms of intelligence, it seemed to be a little mechanical for the time being. However, it would execute its orders with perfect efficiency. After Steven gave the order, the bionic human began to move. It rushed to the entrance of the laboratory with lightning speed and launched an attack on the intruders. Because it was a prototype and it was hastily assembled, there were no usable weapons attached. However, the bionic human was a killing machine made of metal after all. Even if it was only using its fists and legs, it could still cause heavy casualties to these intruders. Steven was very excited to see the mess outside the laboratory. He shouted, "Yes, kill these intruders!" Callie slowly closed the laboratory door and shut the wailing outside. "What are you doing? I haven't had enough fun watching it," Steven said unhappily. "What's there to see? One bionic human isn't enough to destroy all the invaders. We need to assemble a few more," Callie said lightly. Although the bionic human was powerful, the enemy wasn't a fool waiting to be slaughtered. They could potentially get away and report back to their employers what they had seen. The underground laboratory was connected in all directions. If these people wanted to run with just a single bionic human, they really wouldn't be able to kill them all. "You're right, we have to quickly assemble a few more." Steven nodded in agreement. At the same time, the elite team of Wolf Guards sent by Harry arrived at Industrial Island. They had arrived by helicopter. When they saw that a large group of people had gathered at the port, they landed there first. Due to the chaos tonight, the island's security personnel had gathered everyone at the port for safety reasons. It could be said that this place was still under control. However, other than the port, the rest of the island had completely gone out of control. No one knew which places were still in the hands of their own people, and which places had been conquered. After exchanging some simple information with the port's security personnel, the squad discovered that there was no useful information. The chaos that had happened tonight had happened too quickly and strangely. Before these security personnel could react, they had been led by the nose. What should we do? Should we go to various places to investigate the situation, or should we activate the bionic humans? The squad members asked the captain. "Wait, let me think." The captain really wanted to report the current situation to Harry. Unfortunately, all the systems on the island were paralyzed. Even the wireless communication was disturbed in advance. It could be said that the current industrial island was like a black hole. As long as one entered, one could forget about contacting the outside world. Based on what the security personnel said just now, I feel that the situation on the island isn't too serious. It seems like there aren't many enemies that came in. So our main goal now is to find out the purpose of these invaders coming here. The captain made up his mind. He knew how important the bionic humans were to Harry. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he couldn't expose it in advance. This was Harry's trump card. Once it was exposed, the enemy would have time to plan a way to defeat them or Harry. After deducting, the captain felt that the person who caused the destruction on the island this time wasn't very strong. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hidden in the dark and caused the destruction. Therefore, their team should be able to deal with it. After making up his mind, the captain said, "No, there's no hurry to activate the bionic humans. Let's go and have a look at those intruders and see how many they are." With that, he led all the team members out of the port. The security guards at the port were also members of the Wolf Guard. At this moment, they also wanted to follow and search for those intruders. However, before the captain came, Harry had ordered the security guards of the island not to follow him. At this moment, Harry couldn't believe that there was a traitor among his employees. The elite squad entered the industrial island alone. The first step wasn't to find those intruders. Instead, they still came to the underground warehouse's passageway. They had to first check if anyone had broken in. After checking, they found that the storage was still fine. These intruders weren't here for the bionic humans. Harry's secret trump card had yet to be exposed. After eliminating his biggest worry, The captain led his team and started to search for the intruders. In the end, Wolfguard was still on their home ground, let alone their elite team. Their familiarity with the industrial island was definitely better than those intruders. Soon, they found the whereabouts of the intruders. "Captain, we have found some rats. Should we capture them?" "There's no hurry. These people are definitely not the only ones. Follow them and catch the big fish." The ones that were discovered by the Wolfguard's elite team were the commercial spies who had caused havoc outside. Although these people were very strong, their specialties weren't physical. Therefore, when the elite team of the Wolfguard followed behind them, none of them noticed it. In the underground facility of the Research Institute, Stephen and Callie assembled a bionic human. In an instant, it turned the disadvantageous situation around for the two of them. However, these intruders made a mistake. If they fled in all directions at this time, there was only one bionic human that couldn't eliminate them all. Unfortunately, these people all ran back the same way they came, back to the database. Timothy saw that earlier his subordinates had been chatting happily, but now they were crying for their parents and were scrambling. The most important thing was that all of their faces were filled with fear, as if they had seen a ghost. He asked urgently, "What's wrong? Is there a monster in the Research Institute?" "Boss, run! There's a monster!" a man yelled. Timothy felt like he was dreaming. He even wanted to laugh. However, before he could scold his useless subordinates, the sound of heavy footsteps could be heard in the darkness of the tunnel. This movement was not something that could be made by humans. Timothy became nervous all of a sudden. "Prepare your weapons. Be on guard." Just as he finished speaking, the bionic human appeared. A huge and malevolent figure appeared in front of everyone. "Fire!" Timothy didn't believe it. He only believed in the weapon in his hand. However, the group of people fought for a long time. All they saw were the sparks of various metals colliding. The monster didn't even stop and continued to walk over. "It's impossible!" Timothy widened his eyes and said in surprise. When the bionic human walked under the light, he finally saw it clearly. Timothy's heart sank. He wondered what this research institute was researching. He could normally use all kinds of weapons and traps to deal with this robot. But in this kind of limited space, he had nothing but the gun in his hand. There was nothing he could do, and he couldn't think of any other way to deal with it. "Boss, we can't fight it. Let's retreat," a man said. "No way. We can't leave without that technology," another man said. The team members started to argue, and Timothy began to feel conflicted. However, the team members were frightened by the bionic human and became flustered. Timothy still maintained his calm. At the end of the day, what was in front of them was just a machine. Furthermore, Timothy quickly discovered the weakness of the machine. "This thing doesn't seem to be very smart." Because it was quickly assembled, this experimental bionic human didn't have advanced artificial intelligence. It only operated according to limited programming. Hence, although it was powerful, it still didn't seem very smart. Very quickly, Timothy had an idea. Lure him to attack the database door. That's right. Timothy was indeed a super thief. In a moment, not only did he think of how to deal with the bionic human, he even prepared to use it to break open the database door. His subordinates praised him one after another. Their boss was too smart. The group of people instantly lost their fear of the bionic human and became calm once again. As they fought with the bionic human, they led it toward the main door. Then, under the intentional luring attack, they successfully made the bionic human crash into the main door by mistake. The sound of a violent collision resounded throughout the entire ground. The door to the database was indeed very solid, but it wasn't as strong as Stephen boasted. Under the constant enticement of the spies, the bionic human continuously struck the door with its attacks. The ear-piercing sound of metal colliding was heard. Finally, the door in the database couldn't bear the weight and gradually changed shape. After enduring another attack, it finally collapsed with a loud bang. "Cut the crap! You guys lure this thing away, and the rest of the technical staff quickly enter the database and search for the technical information that we are looking for," Timothy ordered. In the laboratory, Stephen's surveillance had already been destroyed, so they didn't know that the bionic human had been used against them. Those intruders had even opened the door to the database, but a huge commotion had also spread through the halls. "The door to the database may have been opened," Stephen exclaimed. Now that the surveillance cameras outside had been destroyed, he had no way of knowing the details of the database door. However, after hearing the commotion, He guessed that someone must have broken the door. Callie said calmly, "The bionic human that was just assembled does not have high intelligence. It's very easy for smart people to use this weakness." Stephen urgently said, "Now is not the time to talk about this. The database has been opened. There are too many secrets stored inside." Unlike the anxious Stephen, Callie said very calmly, "No, the technical information inside is all fake." "What?" Stephen stared blankly at her. "How come I didn't know?" he hurriedly asked. Callie said, "When there was chaos on the island, I had already transferred the confidential information in the database and replaced it with fake information." Stephen was convinced and gave her a thumbs up. "Awesome. Callie, you predicted the enemy's moves in advance. It's just a necessary precaution. Quickly assemble the remaining few bionic humans." Callie said indifferently and didn't care about how shocking this matter was. On the other side of the underground database, those invaders who successfully lured away the bionic human were extremely excited as they faced the open door of the database. "Found it. The technical information regarding the super battery and the artificial intelligence is here." A group of people shouted excitedly. The reason they found it so quickly was because they thought that there were no other secret facilities in the database. There were many storage cabinets inside, and there were even various types of information names written on them. These spies didn't think that anything inside was fake, because they had spent so much effort to get inside. Unfortunately, they didn't think that there would be anyone smart enough to switch all the sensitive data out before they were able to break in. The technical information that they had spent so much effort to find was all fake. The spies didn't dare to delay their mission. After getting the super battery and the artificial intelligence's 2 memory drives, they began to evacuate. On the ground, the Wolf Guard team finally discovered something after following them all the way. They found the signal jammer installed on the island by the intruders. "These people seem to have gathered together. What should we do?" a guard said. "Captain, do you think that these people are only acting as cover, and there's another group of people that are going for the more sensitive data?" another guard said. "Yes, that has to be it. However, it's important to capture these people first and then restore communications." The captain nodded. The Wolf Guard team unanimously agreed, then immediately launched an attack on these people who were creating distractions. With a plan in mind, these commercial spies weren't a match for the Wolf Guard at all. Even if they knew that they had the advantage, they still suffered heavy losses under the ambush of the Wolf Guard. It didn't take long for them to be captured. "Hurry up and destroy the signal jammer. Report the situation to Mr. Harry immediately after the communications are restored," the captain ordered. In the manner, the central control room finally obtained the information from Industrial Island. "Mr. Harry, we have eliminated a group of invaders who caused havoc on the island, but I estimate that there is another one, so we are interrogating the captured prisoners." Harry stood up happily when he heard the report. "Very good. Well done. Carry on, Captain. Stay safe." "Yes, Mr. Harry." The remote communication had been restored, but the security system was still paralyzed. This was because he thought Stephen was busy assembling the bionic human. He didn't have time to repair the paralyzed system. While the Wolf Guard team was interrogating the captives, the spy group at the Research Institute thought they were on their way out. They were quickly leaving the Research Institute. As for the bionic human behind them, they no longer felt afraid. The underground Research Institute was as complicated as a maze. These spies only took a few simple detours before getting rid of the bionic human's pursuit. Then, they unhurriedly left the Research Institute and retreated to the seaside according to their plan. The spies captured by the Wolf Guard were quite professional and moral. In the beginning, when faced with the various methods used by the Wolf Guard, they just gritted their teeth and didn't say anything. But after experiencing the touching experience of the Wolf Guard's interrogation technique, someone finally couldn't help but confess. "What? Your target was the Research Institute?" After learning the real target, the Wolf Guard turned pale with fright. They knew that the Research Institute was also the core of Harry's businesses, and they couldn't afford to lose it. They never thought that these people would be so audacious as to have their sights on the Research Institute. "Hurry up! Inform Mr. Harry immediately. You guys take care of the captives. The rest of you, follow me to the Research Institute." The leader of the Wolf Guard hurriedly ran away with his men, but by the time he ran to the Research Institute, it was already too late. Facing the empty door and the bionic human that was circling underground, the leader slapped his head in annoyance. "I was a step too late. If only I had known earlier." "Captain, Are we going to chase those people, or are there any casualties or other losses in the research institute? A guard asked. The captain thought for a moment and said, "We should split up. You guys search the research institute. I'll lead some people to chase after the intruders. Report to me at any time if there's anything that needs my attention." After saying that, he brought some people and ran out. As for where they were going to chase after them, the captain, who was proficient in tracking, had long discovered the tracks of the intruders leaving. He brought his men and followed the subtle tracks. The Wolf Guard, who had stayed in the research institute, followed the open passageway all the way to the underground. When they saw the open database door and the missing information hard drives, the members of Wolf Guard turned pale with fright. Not good. Someone really stole the confidential information. What should we do? We can only count on the captain. Let's see if he can catch up to those people. Maybe there's still time. Unfortunately, the captain they had high hopes for only saw the shadow of the miniature submarine gradually sinking into the sea when they chased to the seaside. He sat on the reef by the beach in a dispirited manner and once again hammered his head in self-blame. If he had been a little faster, he would have been able to stop these people. In the Underground Research Institute, Stephen and Callie were concentrating on assembling the other bionic humans. Now, the two of them were counting on these machines to turn the tables, so all their attention was focused on them, until the Wolf Guard squad found them. Normally, even the Wolf Guard wouldn't be able to enter this place, but today was different. The security system had been destroyed. In order to figure out the situation, the Wolf Guard had to clear the entire building. When they found Stephen and Callie, the members of the Wolf Guard squad saw the two of them focusing on assembling the machinery. The members of the squad mistakenly thought that the two of them were still trying to research something. They didn't know that the two of them were creating a killing machine. Just a moment ago, a new generation of bionic human had attacked the intruders. Although in the end, because its intelligence wasn't completed, they were used by the enemy to open the database door. What's the situation here? Did an intruder come in just now? He saw that the two of them were still busy. Stephen was alarmed by the sound. When he looked up and saw the familiar uniform of the Wolf Guard, tears immediately streamed down his face. He shouted as if he had been freed from some kind of burden. "Why did you guys come so late? This research institute was infiltrated." "Can you tell me more about it? We were just looking around, but apart from a robot, we didn't see anyone else," the people from the Wolf Guard said awkwardly. When he heard him say that his creation wasn't smart, Stephen felt hurt. It was obviously a quick assembly, but it was still terrifying. "The database has been opened. The information inside should have been stolen as well," Stephen said. "What?" The people of Wolf Guard jumped up in fright. What they least wanted to see had happened. Their technology had actually been stolen. "It's fine, don't worry. The technologies that were stolen are all fake. Don't be afraid." Stephen smiled and patted the shoulder of the Wolf Guard members. "That's great. As long as they didn't steal anything real, it's fine." The Wolf Guard members heaved a sigh of relief. They immediately informed the squad leader who was tracking them outside. Captain, I've got a report." "Speak," the captain at the seaside said helplessly. "After confirmation, someone barged into the research institute. However, there wasn't much damage. They were only able to steal some fake technology." "Are you sure it's fake?" The team members were confused by the captain's question. For a moment, they didn't know whether to answer the truth or not. Captain, the technical information that was stolen was indeed fake. It has been confirmed." "That's great. I'll immediately report it to Mr. Harry." The captain once again became full of energy. The disappointment he felt just now was swept away. In the manner, Harry nodded his head. "Is that so? They only stole the fake technology. The other losses aren't that great? Very well. You guys have worked hard." After ending the communication, Harry sighed with emotion. Callie is still the best at what she does. Originally, Harry was already prepared to suffer heavy losses tonight. However, there was actually a dramatic reversal by Callie. Harry estimated that after those people will get to know the truth, they would lose their minds. The bionic humans weren't exposed, and the enemy didn't succeed either. There were no losses tonight. As for the destroyed buildings and equipment, those can be fixed and replaced. The intruder is obviously here for the technical information. Who was it, the council or the royal family? Harry pondered in his heart. He didn't know who was responsible for the attacks tonight. However, the ones who escaped in the end were the people from the Automotive Alliance. and the commercial spies hired by the mobile phone union had already been captured by the Wolf Guard in one fell swoop. "Lock up all the saboteurs and continue interrogating them," Harry said. "We have found the traitor," a man said. Reports were sent back one after another. Stephen was gradually repairing the security system. The biggest accident tonight was that Peter was exposed. Unfortunately, he was still able to escape. Peter and those spies took a miniature submarine and left Industrial Island together. Now, what made Harry puzzled was who Peter belonged to. After thinking about it, only the council could make sense of it. "Those people from the council really want me to die. It's time to dig in, and when I'm ready, I'm going to slaughter my way to their front door." Harry was furious in his heart. He wished he could kill those people from the council to his heart's content right now. However, he figured that he wasn't ready yet. "Mr. Harry, I want to inform you about the captives we caught. They were hired by the mobile phone company, and those who escaped were hired by the automobile companies." The subordinate reported a piece of news that surprised Harry. He originally thought that the chaos today was caused by the council and the royal family. He didn't expect that it would be these two groups. But what puzzled Harry was how Peter got involved with these people. "Harry, I just received news that a group of people with unknown whereabouts has appeared in Florida. According to my speculation, they seem to be from the royal family." The news that June had reported surprised Harry once again. Why didn't the people from the royal family take advantage of the chaos to attack? Harry was confused. As a matter of fact, Harry thought that the council had formed a connection with the mobile and car company groups. The members of the council had high standards, and they could still barely want to work with the royal family. They'd never work with these groups. The people of the council still felt ashamed to join hands with the royal family to deal with Harry. Tonight, the people from the royal family were purely watching from the back, waiting for the dust to settle. When they saw the spies bringing out the technologies, the people from the royal family were finally ready to use their full strength. It was different from what the council had expected. The royal family didn't plan to be used as a weapon for the council from the very beginning. They weren't stupid. They knew that the council was urging them to deal with Harry because they wanted them to act as pawns for their bigger plans. After Humphrey and the others came to Florida, they didn't make any moves for a long period of time. They just waited for a good opportunity to attack. After waiting patiently for a long time, Humphrey finally got the opportunity he wanted. The Mobile Phone Alliance and the Car Company Alliance acted first. Humphrey quietly waited as they brought the technology out into the open. As for what would happen if the other party failed, it didn't matter. Humphrey still had a second plan. However, the current situation was even better. The other party had successfully stolen the technology. Humphrey already knew that these people would return to a remote port in Florida after obtaining the technology. They would then take the ship they had prepared earlier and head to another coastal city. They would hand the technical information over to the employer and get the rest of the commission. Therefore, Humphrey needed to wait patiently at this remote port. After a few miniature submarines surfaced one after another, the commercial spies that had suffered heavy losses climbed onto the beach in exhaustion. They were ready to take a breather. After resting, they would leave on the ships where they had planned to go. At this moment, Humphrey launched an attack. These spies had stolen Harry's technology, and Humphrey had stolen the technology from them. None of the spies had ever thought that someone would know the location of the remote port and set up an ambush for them. All of them were lying on the ground, exhausted, unable to move. Humphrey launched a shameless sneak attack, taking advantage of the situation, controlling all of them, and even seizing all of their weapons. "Who are you?" Timothy asked nervously. He didn't know Humphrey, nor did he know what Humphrey's goal was. The only guess was that their employers didn't want to pay their group for their hard work. However, thinking about it, that idea made no sense. In order to not pay the final payment, they hired another group of people to deal with them. Therefore, Timothy didn't know what kind of background Humphrey had. Of course, Humphrey wouldn't tell them out of kindness and only threatened them. "Hand over the technology you have, or else all of you will sink into the sea." Timothy's heart sank. In his career, Timothy had been threatened before, but in the past, he was always in a position to get himself out. This time was different. His people were all captured. There was no room for resistance. Humphrey smiled. Timothy motioned to Humphrey and his men that he had no idea what they were talking about. Then Humphrey orders one of his men to search Timothy. However, he didn't expect that just as the search started, an unexpected voice would appear. I know who has the information you want. Humphrey looked at the source of the voice and raised his eyebrows. He recognized the person who had spoken. The official council had told him about their man on the inside, Peter. Of course, Humphrey knew who Peter was, but Peter didn't know that Humphrey was the person he needed to meet. Due to some misunderstandings, Peter regarded the spies as one of his own. Peter's face turned yellow. He didn't want to get hurt. He is the boss. The information is on him. Humphrey didn't understand. He had already sent his men to search Timothy. However, this wasn't important anymore. His goal was to find the super battery technology. Oh, so it's on you. Are you going to hand it over obediently, or should I help you? Humphrey looked at Timothy and asked with a smile on his face. Timothy was silent for a moment and sighed. All right, I admit defeat. He took out the hard drive and handed it to Humphrey. After Humphrey got the information, he called his subordinates and took out a computer to connect to the hard drive. After a simple browse, he determined that this was what he was looking for. He carefully put it away and said, "Thank you all so much for your generous help. Goodbye." After saying that, he took all his subordinates and left. The rest of the spies who were lying on the ground heaved a sigh of relief. "Boss, why did you hand it over?" a man asked. "Yeah, boss, we can't complete the mission. How much money will we lose?" another man said. The group sighed again, but in fact, they all knew there was no choice at all. However, Timothy chuckled and said mysteriously, "You bunch of idiots. You really think that I handed over the technology just now?" Timothy laughed. "In our line of work, how can we not be prepared to get blackmailed? I had a fake drive on me before we left in case our employer tried to trick us." "Boss is awesome, but why did those people just now think that the technology is real? Are you stupid? It's not like they don't know what a real hard disk that stores technology looks like. You're the stupid one. Even if the hard drive can be hidden, the information inside can't be hidden from others." Timothy smiled and explained, "This is why I always tell you to think ahead." Timothy smiled with a wide smile. "I wish I could see the bearded man's face when he realizes the only information he has on that drive is cat videos and folders with hundreds of empty folders inside." At this moment, Peter couldn't help but congratulate him. "I never thought that I'd be working with a clever genius such as yourself," Peter flattered and said. Timothy glanced at him and said disdainfully, "You just sold me out. Now you want me to forgive you?" "Of course not. It was all a show," Peter said carefully. "A show? I wasn't born yesterday." Timothy was instantly enraged. He had succeeded in his mission, but at the cost of a lot of men. Peter was just a traitor. Timothy was happy to scold him and curse him out. Timothy knew that once the mission was over, any loose ends would be a liability. A traitor like Peter would be dangerous to him and his men. "Tie him up and throw him into the sea. This is the consequence of betraying me," Timothy said angrily. Peter was so scared that his face turned pale. Please don't. I don't know how to swim." "That's good. I don't need to worry about you not drowning," Timothy said happily. He watched Peter being thrown into the sea by his subordinates. Then he rolled a few times on the surface of the sea and disappeared. Timothy didn't feel very happy. Instead, his expression became more and more solemn. Timothy couldn't help but think about the people that had ambushed them and how they knew that they would meet at this port. However, Timothy couldn't figure it out, and after thinking for a long time, he couldn't come up with an answer. Seeing that his subordinates had all rested, he ordered them to hurry up and leave the port. No matter who those people were, he had lied to them, and he wasn't keen on seeing how angry they could get. Thus, this group of spies took advantage of the night to leave Florida by boat. After Humphrey and the others got the drive, they left Florida. Harry knew where everyone was that had been involved in the mess on the island, whether that was directly or indirectly. He decided to let them go. It was because Harry already knew that these people had obtained fake technical information. The spies had always believed that what they had obtained was real technical information and that they would never change their minds. They even thought that they had fooled Humphrey and the others. Humphrey thought that he had profited from this matter and that he had obtained the technology that he wanted without any effort at all. Unfortunately, they had been tricked by Callie. Because Harry couldn't determine the relationship between these people, he decided not to tell his men to stop surveilling. There were chances that, when they would realize they'd stolen nothing, they'd be back. As expected, the two parties excitedly returned to report to their respective parties. On the side of the Automotive Alliance, when they saw the spies returning with the drives, they were so happy that they were about to fly into the sky. When both sides were satisfied with the transaction, an accident happened. "There's something wrong with the information," the technical staff who was checking the information exclaimed. "What's going on?" "Impossible. This is the real information. What problem can there be?" Timothy said unhappily. "There really is a problem. This technical information is fake," the technical staff said with certainty. Timothy had doubts that the man was telling the truth. He was wondering if he had given the real technical information to those people who ambushed him. "How do you know it's fake? Do you have proof?" Timothy asked. He suspected that it was his employers who didn't want to pay the rest of the commission, so they lied and said that it was false information. However, the technical staff was sure that what they had was nothing close to the specifications of the super battery or the artificial intelligence. "This data is basically useless. I'm not even sure these are specifications for anything real at all," the tech said. The same discussion was happening within the royal family. "Humphrey, you've done well. Ambushing the thieves makes taking that technology so easy," a prince said. "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my duty for the family," Humphrey said modestly. "Well, you will be rewarded for your service. You have made a great contribution this time. I have decided to reward you with the ownership of 2 lucrative oil fields." Humphrey didn't think this was much of a gift, considering he had just delivered the technology that would render oil worthless. But he still had to be grateful. "Thank you for your generosity, sir." "Sir, this drive doesn't have anything useful on it," a tech said. "What?" Humphrey was shocked. The technology he had carefully planned to seize was fake. "Humphrey, what is going on? You better have a good explanation." The prince stared coldly at Humphrey. He had reason to believe that Humphrey might want to take the technology for himself. Everyone knew how much wealth this super battery technology could bring. Facing this question, Humphrey's brain operated rapidly. He couldn't admit that he had made a mistake and obtained fake technology. If that were the case, these people wouldn't believe it. They would only think that he had tried to trick them on purpose. Humphrey needed to find an excuse to get rid of their suspicion. "Sir, I think we were fooled by the Parker family." "Oh, what do you mean?" the prince said. "Originally, the council prepared spies for us, but they were working for the Automobile Alliance. I think the council didn't want us to get the technology, so they arranged for the spies to steal the technology and give us nothing." Humphrey said that the spies were extremely cunning, indicating that he had been deceived by them. After a detailed explanation, the prince was skeptical. "So, the Automotive Alliance has the technology?" "That's 100% true. We've all been tricked." Humphrey had to act confident. "They think we're fools." The prince was furious. Humphrey heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He had finally managed to fool the prince. However, what he said wasn't entirely false. He was certain that it was Peter and the others who had fooled him. He hid the real technical information and gave him a fake drive. "Humphrey, I order you to make up for your mistakes. Find those spies and get me that technology," the prince ordered. Humphrey unwillingly lowered his head and said, "Yes, I will follow your orders." At the Automotive Alliance headquarters, after discovering that the technical information was fake, the members of the Alliance were furious. "You rave that you're the best thieves in the business, yet you can't even tell that what you've stolen is fake? You can forget about your commission. Even more, you'll pay me back every penny I wasted hiring you," Matthew yelled. Timothy was unhappy. He didn't want to admit defeat, but he also believed that his actions weren't wrong. The only answer was that Peter was the traitor. He explained, "Our operation went very smoothly. If there was any failure, then it's the spies you arranged. He was the one who took us to the database." "What traitor? Where did the traitor come from?" Matthew asked. "What, Peter is not one of yours?" Timothy was confused. "Who is Peter?" Matthew continued. Unfortunately, Timothy couldn't find the answer to this question because he had already killed Peter. However, this didn't stop him from thinking about it. The only reason he and his team were able to get to the database room was because of Peter. However, after obtaining the technology, Timothy's team was attacked by a group of mysterious people. If there was nothing fishy about this, then Peter had nothing to do with that group of shady people. Timothy wouldn't believe anything he said. Peter was a spy among the spies. "Tell me, who is this Peter? What is going on?" an executive said. The bosses of the Automotive Alliance were so anxious about the technology that they jumped up and down. After Timothy obtained the technical information, he told them everything that had happened. Suddenly, everyone thought about it. The technical information must be real, and they had no doubt about it. Then the problem was with Peter and the gang of shady people that ambushed them. The appearance of these people was too strange. It was impossible to not arouse suspicion. Then the problem was these secret forces that ambushed you, an executive said. In that case, your mission hasn't been completed yet. The real information still needs to be found, said another. When you find the real technical information, I will give you the rest of the commission, Matthew said. Timothy gritted his teeth and said, Don't worry, I will find those people who cheated us and make them spit out the real technology. Both groups had assumed that the other group had tricked them in some way. They became hostile towards each other over this misunderstanding and even prepared to fight. Harry had built up a network of his own spies and had learned about both meetings from the groups that had conspired to attack him. Interesting? This is really interesting. Does this mean that both sides think that the other party has the real technology? Harry laughed out loud when he saw the information June handed over. He didn't expect that Callie's fake database trick would cause such a huge reaction. Seeing the enemies on both sides attack each other made Harry very happy. While Harry was secretly delighted in his heart, his opponents were unhappy. More importantly, these people didn't think that this was Harry's doing. The people of the royal family thought that the real technology had been stolen by the people of Automotive Alliance. The Automotive Alliance thought that the real technology had been stolen by the royal family. Although the royal family's operation this time was covert and was considered to be a shady business, the combined strength of these major powers of the automotive industry wasn't to be underestimated. After they found out that the technical information was fake, they quickly investigated the identities of Humphrey and the others. The first to act was the royal family. Humphrey had given the fake information to his superiors, therefore, his head was almost chopped off. Fortunately, after his explanation, his superiors decided to give him a chance. They wanted him to atone for his crimes and retrieve the real technical information. Humphrey was going to do anything he could to save his life. Immediately, he gathered all of his men and started investigating the Automotive Alliance. Boss, the Automotive Alliance formed as a joint enterprise after the appearance of the fantasy electric car. It was formed by the combination of many old car companies to compete in the market with an electric car of their own. Listening to the report made by his subordinates, Humphrey said unhappily, I already knew about this. Didn't you find anything more useful? There was some other information. Other than those people from the Automotive Alliance, there is also a group from the smartphone companies who launched the operation against Harry's factory. Humphrey was so angry that he flipped the table. I already knew about this. When his subordinate saw his boss getting angry, he was so scared that his whole body trembled. He quickly flipped through the information that he had brought. Then he said, Also, according to the latest investigation, after our operation that night, all the newly established research personnel of the Automotive Alliance have been mobilized. Humphrey was stunned for a moment, then fell into deep thought. Is that so? Does this mean that they are gathering all their researchers to study the real technology? The underling hesitated for a moment before saying, We have no way to confirm that. Our intelligence personnel can't enter the research institute, so we can't figure out what is happening inside. Humphrey snorted. They're all trash. What do I need you for if I can't even find out the details of the investigation? The underling lowered his head and didn't dare to make a sound. In his heart, he thought with disdain, It was you who messed up the matter first. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so troublesome now. Seeing that his subordinates were silent in response, Humphrey said angrily, Are you stupid? Since we already have evidence, why don't we hurry up and take action? Let me tell you, if we don't get the real technical information this time, it'll be my head. I'll be taking all of you with me if that happens. The underling was so scared that he shivered and hurriedly nodded. Yes, I will inform everyone to prepare for action right away. Humphrey's subordinates quickly gathered together. This time, Humphrey was going to stake everything he had. He gathered all his men and was going to the Automotive Alliance's Research Institute to steal what he believed to be rightfully his. He had been forced to the edge of the cliff. If he didn't find the real technical information, his superiors would kill him. Unlike when he attacked Harry's territory, he gathered all of his men and directly rushed to the Research Institute of Automotive Alliance. Coincidentally, the Automotive Alliance had also discovered that the technical information in their hands was fake. A few of the executives were furious. They decided at the Research Institute that they would find the perpetrator and would deal with them accordingly. Thus, the Automotive Alliance immediately started gathering people at their research institute. This time, the Automotive Alliance didn't plan to hire anyone from outside their group. They were attacked by Humphrey. The group of car owners were dumbfounded. At first, they thought that it was Harry who came to take revenge on them. However, after they figured out that Humphrey and the others were the ones who took away their technical information, everyone at the Automotive Alliance was furious. They never would have guessed that Humphrey would lead a group of people to ambush their prize, because they knew that Humphrey was just a pawn. The real mastermind was the Saudi Arabian royal family. If Humphrey had taken the real technology, then Humphrey would have given it to his superiors long ago. It wouldn't be easy for the Automotive Alliance to find him. They figured a man like him would immediately go into hiding with the money he earned from the job. He was a distant member of the royal family, and therefore didn't have to spend too much time hiding. His family would help to protect him from any retaliation. What they didn't know is that Humphrey had been plotting to attack their research institute. Their search for Humphrey had ended before it even began. Harry was just waiting to see what either side would do to the other. However, with such a big thing happening in the Automotive Alliance, it was impossible not to let people know. As one of the people involved, Humphrey had never thought that he would encounter so many enemies in this operation. The Research Institute of the Automotive Alliance was packed with well-armed men and researchers. Although Humphrey was going to risk his life and fight his way in, and then find the real technical information. But he didn't think that he would meet so many guards from the Automotive Alliance. Humphrey had brought less than 500 men with him. However, in the Research Institute of the Automotive Alliance, there were more than 1,000 guards. The moment they started attacking, Humphrey suffered a huge loss. A lot of his own men were either killed or severely wounded. However, he didn't care. The only thing in Humphrey's eyes right now was the real technical information. He had already bet everything on this attack, and he wouldn't allow failure to be on his side. His men had suffered losses one by one, and his heart ached for them. However, compared to his own life, he didn't care all that much about these men. He was still entirely unaware that the information he thought the Automotive Alliance had was just as fake as the one he had stolen. This attack had been rushed from the beginning. He had made plans of bad intelligence and had little knowledge of his target before he sent his men in. Humphrey was misled to believe that the Research Institute would have its usual amount of guards. The real number was 4 times higher than usual and would have made the attack stop in the planning phase. However, it was precisely because the security here was so tight that Humphrey firmly believed that the real technical information was in this research institute. Humphrey's self-righteous thinking was the complete opposite of the truth. The Automotive Alliance had arranged thousands of elite guards here. They didn't want to defend the research institute at all. This was because there was no real technology here. Just like Humphrey, what they got was fake. They were also unwilling to give up. They wanted to gather their forces and retrieve the information. They never thought that Humphrey would be so foolish as to crawl into this place himself. Furthermore, the Automotive Alliance also felt that the real technical information had been taken away by Humphrey. A fight broke out all of a sudden, and it was devastating on both sides. They were both fighting head-on, fighting in an incomparably bitter manner. The difference in numbers was too great, but Humphrey's men had an advantage. Each and every one of them was strong, even stronger than the guards hired by the Automotive Alliance. For a moment, the battle was inextricably locked. Humphrey commanded his subordinates to keep attacking the Research Institute while hiding in the hastily built command center. He held a megaphone and shouted at his men. At this moment, all the executives of the Automotive Alliance were in the Research Institute. If Humphrey rushed into the Research Institute, it would be a total massacre. They were trapped inside while Humphrey was trying to get in, and none of them could relax. They weren't fighters. They had been wealthy since they were kids and had never known true hardship. "This is too much. What does Humphrey want? Is he just here to kill us?" a short executive said. "He already stole the data. Why is he coming here to attack us?" another executive said. "Did we offend him somehow, or is he just coming back to remove potential enemies?" another executive said. "No way. Why would he try to attack us with barely any men?" the executive said. "It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense," the short man said. "Schmidt, he isn't here for you, right? I heard that at a cocktail party not long ago. You and the prince of the royal family had an argument over a woman," an executive with glasses said. "He's not here for me. I've already reconciled with the prince," Schmidt said. It doesn't matter why he's here, we have to get rid of him, the executive said. You're right. I think this man has gone crazy. Since this is the case, let's fight, Schmidt said. The executives of the Automotive Alliance were guessing, but they couldn't figure out why Humphrey attacked them. However, they had a unanimous opinion. That was, they had to fight back. Therefore, they made a call. They continued to gather their subordinates and called their closest friends to ask for help. Harry, who was thousands of miles away, was watching the live broadcast of the attack. The battle between the two parties had caused quite a commotion. Harry wasn't the only one that had been watching the fight. The council and other interested parties had set their surveillance equipment up to see the outcome of the battle. Some of the more daring parties even ran closer and started their live broadcasts at a closer distance. However, no one knew the reason behind the massive battle. Only Harry was the one who knew the reason for this conflict. Some of the people that had gotten closer were posting their live streams to the mainstream websites. Harry saw this and thanked them for a closer view and then donated to them. The live broadcast chat room exploded after seeing the multiple large donations go across the screen. The live streamer shouted excitedly, wanting to take the risk and take the drone closer. Harry told the streamer to stay safe. He wouldn't donate any further if they got too close to the action. Harry was happy to see the two groups that had attacked him were destroying each other, and he didn't even have to lift a finger. June, who was standing by the side watching, covered her mouth and laughed. Harry, what's so good about seeing them kill each other? Why don't you do it yourself? Harry had lost a lot of money from the attack, and rebuilding the island's defenses was not cheap. The island's automatic defense system had been paralyzed due to hacking and was practically slag by the time Steven stopped the virus. Until now, Steven and the others were working overtime and had yet to repair it. The fire in the warehouse wasn't small either. Many of the raw materials and spare parts inside were destroyed, causing the factory's production to drop by quite a bit. This was also a big blow to the supply of orders that couldn't meet the demand before the attack. Though the Research Institute was the target, it had been the least damaged building on the whole island. The main reason was that Callie handled the attack well. Not only did she change the information in the database, but she also assembled a bionic human in time and chased away the intruders. The greatest benefit that they found through this invasion was that they had discovered the holes in the security system. Steven led the technical team and was currently repairing the paralyzed system while modifying the wiring that had been tampered with. Fortunately, they didn't suffer any greater losses. Harry was still scared. If the people from the council used this weakness, Harry would have to be lucky if he got out alive. Before encountering any greater losses, he had his people working around the clock to make sure that all of his properties were safe. The loss of materials had been the greatest loss. There was nothing left to recover. Of course, Harry was furious, but this didn't stop him from watching the video and cheering to his heart's content at his enemies killing each other. After hearing June's question, Harry smiled and said, "What's the hurry? Let them kill each other for a bit before we do anything." June was confused, and Harry noticed her confusion. He explained to June, "They attacked us and hurt us badly, but now things have turned around. We need to be patient." June still didn't quite understand Harry's explanation. In her heart, Harry had always retaliated the first chance he got. June knew Harry could be incredibly arrogant at times. Whoever offended Harry wouldn't be able to wait until the next day. On that day, Harry would take revenge. But today was different. Facing these enemies, Harry had the patience to sit and watch the live broadcast. On the surface, he looked calm and relaxed. He didn't seem to be in a hurry to get his revenge. "June, tell me, what is the main threat we are facing now?" Harry asked. June was confused for a moment. She pointed at her chin and thought for a while. She said, "Is it the royal family?" Harry smiled. "Why them?" June said, "Harry, you just participated in the industrial exposition. The super battery is enough to make the royal family bankrupt. They will definitely regard you as their archenemy." Harry smiled and shook his head. "No, guess again." "If not the royal family, then could it be the Automotive Alliance? It's also doomed to go bankrupt without getting the technology you have." June saw that she had guessed wrong. Harry sighed and said, "It's the family council." June originally wanted to refute. After all, it was the council of the family, and Harry was the legal heir. She never thought that they would be a threat to Harry for any reason. After thinking for a moment, June finally understood. She had long been used to working in the underworld and thinks of the Parker family as her home. However, she didn't realize that the current family council had also regarded Harry as their enemy. As for the reason, it was because Harry was growing too powerful. Currently, Harry was the successor of the family. If nothing unexpected happened to Harry, he would be the leader of the Parker family in no time. Therefore, the council felt threatened by Harry. The council also coveted Harry's current assets. More accurately, they were waiting to get their hands on Harry's technology, which would make anyone who sold it the richest person in the world. The members of the council weren't stupid. Of course, they knew what the best action was to make. Harry had his parents as the reason that he could never like the council. They deserved to die horrible deaths in his mind. Therefore, Harry couldn't shake hands with the council to make peace. The council wouldn't let Harry return to the family without worry. Both parties had their own considerations and reasons, so they became the biggest threat to each other. Harry, I understand. June was extremely intelligent. The reason why she didn't guess it correctly was because her thoughts were still fixed on the false impression of the Parker family members, where family comes first and businessmen second. June still hoped that Harry could one day be accepted by the family again. Harry knew their relationship was severed forever. Seeing that June had understood, Harry nodded his head. He said, "It's good that you have thought it through. The attack on Industrial Island this time might seem like a simple snatch and grab, but it's not." "Harry, are you saying that there's a shadow of the council here?" June asked. Harry nodded and said, "Yes, although there is no evidence, they have to be behind all of this." "Those men from the council are evil. How can they plot against you like this?" June said with righteous indignation. Harry smiled and didn't say anything. He wasn't angry at the council's scheme against him. Anyway, they were hostile to each other. It was normal for them to plot against each other in secret. The council had made the first move. Harry couldn't blame them for taking swift action. Therefore, there was no need to be angry about it. This was also why Harry watched the live broadcast and said that it was good that Humphrey and the Automotive Alliance were killing each other. It was because these two parties were just cannon fodder for the council. They had no idea that they were being played by the Parker family. Now that they had attacked Harry, he didn't care what happened to them. However, since the council had yet to appear, Harry had to remain calm. If he couldn't remain calm and felt that there was a chance to make a move, then he would be playing into their hands. Harry wanted to sit on the mountain and watch them fight. He wanted to reap the benefits from their conflict. Harry wanted to see how the council would deal with this situation. Harry wasn't in a hurry to get back at them. He just watched the live broadcast with peace of mind and watched with glee. Meanwhile, in the main hall of the council in the Parker family palace, the four men of the council heard the news. Their blood was boiling. Initially, they thought that using the royal family to deal with Harry was a good idea. In the beginning, the performance of the people of the royal family was pretty good. They had successfully made use of the Automotive Alliance as a chess piece to compete with Harry. However, the council had never thought that the people of the royal family would be so disappointing. All their hard work had been destroyed in an evening. Now, not only did they not get the real technical information, but they also even started fighting with the Automotive Alliance. They figured that Harry was grinning from ear to ear at the news that his enemies were fighting each other. He was probably rolling around on the floor, laughing hysterically. The four council members were furious. They thought that they had wasted a lot of time and effort on some worthless assets. "You said that the royal family would be able to give a serious blow to Harry. What should we do?" one of the men said. The other three looked at each other. After a moment of silence, someone said, "The people of the royal family are useless. I think we should do it ourselves." "No, this isn't the time yet. For the time being, we still need to use other powers to deal with Harry," the first man said. "This is too troublesome. Borrowing someone else's hands is never as good as borrowing one's own," said a third man. "Yeah, with Harry's current ability, we can just reach out and crush him to death. There's no need to go through so much trouble," said the fourth man. "Don't forget that there are still a lot of people who stick to tradition in our family. If these people knew that we are going to deal with Harry, they wouldn't listen to us anymore," said the second man. It was true that the council had control over the entire Parker family, so it was extremely easy for them to deal with Harry. However, once the council attacked, it would be clear to the rest of the family that they wanted to take over the family's power. Although everyone in the Parker family knew that Hadrian was the one in charge of the council, he wouldn't easily hand over the authority that he had obtained. With all the family politics at play, it would be very hard to attack Harry openly without jeopardizing the power that the council had. They had to hire others to take care of Harry for them without disrupting their precarious power dynamic. "No, we can't let the royal family and Automotive Alliance continue to fight," one of the council members said. "That's right, we can still make use of them," said the short man. "No way. Most of the people who control the Automotive Alliance are old money grabbers. These old-fashioned guys are too stubborn. We can't use them," one of the council members complained. "I think this is an opportunity," the short man continued. "Since it's the Automotive Alliance, they are just a temporary organization. They aren't united internally. I think we should have some shares in their new combined enterprise." "You mean to buy a large amount of the scattered shares without being noticed? Then, when the majority of the shares are owned by us, we'll take it private?" another council member said. "That's what I mean, but we have to do it in secret," the short man replied. "That's easy to say, but the most important thing right now is to resolve the conflict between them and the royal family, right?" the large man asked. "That's the problem. The royal family said that the technical information is still in the Automotive Alliance, but the Automotive Alliance said that the information was stolen by the royal family. Who is telling the truth?" one of the other men said. The council members weren't omniscient. They needed information to take any sort of action. Right now, they had no idea which information was true or false. Their spy network was in chaos. Both sides insisted that the other group had the real technical information. Is it possible that the royal family is lying? After all, the super battery technology is their biggest threat, and the profits from it would be huge. Could it be that they want to keep it all for themselves, and that's why they created this confusion? the large man asked. "There is no way to be sure," the short man said. The situation has changed, and now even the council feels powerless. It wasn't that they had completely lost control, but they had little to no information to work for the cause and couldn't form a plan of action. They tried their best to urge the other major powers to make a move against Harry. Unfortunately, the group they had just chosen wasn't powerful enough. They wanted to punish them for their failure, but it would be difficult to try and go against the entire royal family. A desperate family like theirs could cause serious damage to the Parker family. The current situation was a little complicated. The royal, who was sent to deal with Harry, suddenly turned around and attacked the Automotive Alliance. They were supposed to be allies, but now they had become enemies. The council discussed for a long time and found that there was no good solution for their problem. "What should we do? These two parties have already fought to such an extent. Can we still mediate?" a council member asked. "I think we can," said the large man. "Yeah, we should be able to get them to sit down and negotiate," said the short man. "Yeah, we will personally mediate the negotiations. The two of them have to talk to us, right?" Hadrian said. Another big shot shook his head and said, "I think it's not possible. The technology they have obtained this time is too important. The benefits involved are even greater. No one wants to let go of it. It probably won't work," said the fourth member. "Then what should we do? We can't just watch them fight until both of them are severely injured. This thing will let Harry get the advantage over us," said the large man. "The acquisition of shares is too slow. It will take some time. Both of them are fighting right now," said the fourth member. "Then let's inform the royal family first and ask them to stop attacking," said the large man. The council discussed and sent people to inform the royal family. They asked them to stop their hostile actions against the Automotive Alliance. "Sir, the Parker Family Council has sent someone to talk to us." In a palace of the royal family, Mel was waiting for news from Humphrey. He didn't expect that the Parker family's council would come to talk to him about anything before Humphrey did. These days, the council had been using Humphrey as a tool. Mel was Humphrey's master, the person behind the scenes who had sent people to seize Harry's technical information. Mel's judgment was still vicious. After learning that Harry had super battery technology, he immediately took action. Although this was also partly due to the incitement of the council, he had planned to attack Harry without them. Because this concerned the life and death of the royal family, and as the first heir of the royal family, Mel didn't want to become the king of nothing. Therefore, to Mel, this technology would be the one thing that could bring his family back to glory. It didn't matter if something went wrong with the operation to steal technology from Harry. The technology was going to be his, one way or another. This was also the reason why he forced Humphrey to snatch the technology from Automotive Alliance after learning that the information he stole was fake. Oh, a member of the Parker family's council. What did he say? Mel frowned and asked. They asked us to stop attacking the Automotive Alliance and negotiate, the guard said in a submissive tone. Mel was furious when he heard this and threw the cup on the spot. Who do those old men think I am? That I'm their dog? They were the ones who suggested snatching the technology, and now we aren't allowed to steal it. Are they trying to play tricks on me? Seeing that the prince was really angry, the guard was even more frightened. In the past few days, the prince had been moody. This guard didn't want to make him angrier, so he could only help. That's right. The people of the Parker family are too arrogant. They don't take us seriously. What else did they say? Mel asked again. Nothing else. They only said that they have their own arrangements with the Automotive Alliance. They don't need us to interfere anymore. Mel became even angrier. Now he was sure that the real super battery technology was in the hands of the Automotive Alliance. In order to get the information, Mel had no other choice but to attack. However, the Parker family's council sent someone to request that they stop the operation, saying that they had their own arrangements. Mel had confirmed the speculation in his heart. He felt that the Parker family's council must have wanted to push him away and obtain the information by themselves. This made him even more unhappy. Since Mel had already gotten his hands on the technical information, he would never give up on it. Furthermore, this was a technology that concerned his life and death, and it was even more impossible for him to give up on it. Thinking of this, he coldly ordered his subordinates, "Send a message to Humphrey. Don't stop attacking." He had already made up his mind. No matter how much the Parker family's council asked him to stop snatching information, Mel would never let go of this matter. After all, it was a matter of his life and death. He could only feel at ease when he obtained the technical information about the super battery. Meanwhile, Humphrey's attack was about to succeed at the Research Institute of Automotive Alliance. Most of the people of Automotive Alliance had already been eliminated by him. As long as he put in more effort, he would be able to take down this research institute and steal the technology Mel wanted. Humphrey was very happy that he was so close to taking the technology inside. Otherwise, if he failed again, Humphrey's head would be removed from his neck. All of you, charge in with all your might. The first person to charge in will be rewarded with $1 million. Humphrey waved his hand and shouted. $1 million was like a drop in the ocean to Humphrey. But in the eyes of Humphrey's men, $1 million was an extremely high reward. When they heard the higher-ups give such a high reward, the group of subordinates immediately felt as if they were injected with stimulants. They roared and charged in. However, before they could take down the Research Institute in one go, an accident happened. More than 10 cars drove over from afar and suddenly rushed into the courtyard of the Research Institute. Before anyone could react, a group of people appeared in a convoy of cars. Everyone stop attacking! This group of people who suddenly appeared shouted towards the two sides in the chaotic battle. Because they didn't understand the origin of these people, no matter if it was Humphrey or the Automotive Alliance, they tacitly stopped attacking. They could tell that these people weren't ordinary people just by looking at them, so they didn't dare to attack them. With these people around, the Automotive Alliance could at least take a breath. They were a few minutes from defeat. On the other hand, Humphrey was very unhappy. He was about to take over this research institute. Humphrey was very anxious in his heart, but no matter how anxious he was, he still maintained his composure. He knew that now wasn't the time to complicate things. No matter how anxious he was, he wanted to get the technical information. Currently, his enemy was only the Automotive Alliance, so he couldn't involve any other people. Although Humphrey had brought a lot of people with him, they were away from the battlefield after all. Therefore, their strength had been greatly restrained. They were able to take down this research institute by surprise, and this caused an accident in the Automotive Alliance. However, just as they were about to succeed, an even bigger accident happened. The unknown people who had interrupted the fight between them were none other than the people sent by the council. They arrived so fast because the council had a direct office not far from here. After openly stating that they wanted to organize a meeting between the two parties, they immediately ordered the people here to stop them. "We are the representatives sent by the Parker family's council. Now we request both of you to stop your hostile actions immediately." A member of the council shouted. Humphrey was anxious. He didn't expect that these people were sent by the Parker family's council. This was going to be tricky. He knew his superior. Mel had made up his mind to get the super battery technology. However, he didn't expect that the Parker family's council would interfere on the eve of success. Humphrey's mind was quickly analyzing his next move. If he continued to attack, he would have to offend the Parker family's council. However, if he didn't attack, he would have to listen to them. Humphrey wasn't an honest man. This kind of important technology couldn't be traded by sitting down and negotiating. Only by using force could he obtain what he wanted. If he backed down, not only would he not get the technology, but Mel would take his life when he will go back. "Boss, what should we do? The Parker family is not someone we can mess with," Humphrey's subordinate asked anxiously. They all knew what kind of power the Parker family held. Even Mel might not be able to bear the consequences of offending the Parker family. Humphrey gritted his teeth and couldn't say a word for a long time. He was in a dilemma and didn't know how to make a choice. Fortunately, just as Humphrey wasn't sure what to do, his superior Mel called him. "Mel, Humphrey, what's the situation over there?" Mel asked in anger. "Sir, I was going to break through the research institute any minute, but now the Parker Family Council has sent someone to stop me and my men." Humphrey had no choice but to speak the truth. He didn't want to die, and he didn't want to bear the responsibility of offending the Parker family. Therefore, he told the truth because he wanted Mel to make a decision for him. In the end, Mel was very decisive, and he didn't hesitate at all. He immediately gave the order. "I don't care who the Parker family is, I only have one request. You must get me the technology, do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." Humphrey was overjoyed. With Mel's orders, he was happy. Although the Parker family was powerful, no one could afford to offend them. However, there were only a dozen or so people who came to stop him and make him negotiate. With Humphrey's men, he could totally ignore these people and continue to attack the research institute. The reason why they were forced to stop attacking was because the Parker family's reputation was too great. With his superior's clear instructions as a pawn, Humphrey didn't need to think too much. He would just fight. He might not die if he offended the Parker family, but if he couldn't get the technology, Mel would kill him. Humphrey's men continued to attack the Research Institute of the Automotive Alliance. However, these people still had some concerns in their hearts and didn't dare to involve the people of the Parker family. Therefore, when they attacked, they avoided the representatives sent by the council. "Stop! I told you to stop. Can't you hear me?" said one of the men from the convoy. The people of the Parker family's council were furious when they saw that Humphrey didn't listen to them and insisted on attacking the Research Institute. As members of the council, these people had very arrogant personalities. They looked down on everyone. In their eyes, only the Parker Family Council was the most superior existence. Normally, as long as they gave an order, no one would dare to disobey them. But today, it was different. Humphrey ignored them completely. He dared to ignore the advice of the council. Even now, it was a warning. "Don't tell me you really want to go against the Parker family. Do you want to die?" the man continued. Humphrey smiled with a sad face. "Going against the Parker family is death. If I can't get the technology, I will die. I would rather get the technology." He had no choice but to do what Mel said. He took the risk of offending the Parker family to obtain the technology. If that was the case, Humphrey might not have a good time in the future, and he might lose his life. However, at least he could save his family's lives. Mel wouldn't make things difficult for his family again, considering that he had completed this very important mission. Of course, Humphrey also knew the consequences of his actions. It was very likely that Mel would be the scapegoat when he returned and would push him out to quell the Parker family's anger. However, since he had no other choice, he could only do what he was told. If he couldn't get the information, not only Mel would punish him, but even his family wouldn't be able to escape the blame. "Everyone, do your best to break through to the Research Institute. Today, we must get that technology," Humphrey shouted again. His subordinates were all desperate criminals. They didn't care about the Parker family's council. The people sent by the Parker family's council were all stunned. They had never seen people that disregarded the consequences of their actions. They wanted to stop Humphrey. However, there weren't enough of them to stop all his men. There were only a dozen of them, and half of them were civil servants. They weren't trained in any form of combat. Hence, after Humphrey ignored them, the people sent by the council could only watch helplessly. Humphrey's subordinates were very powerful. After ignoring the threats of the council, they attacked with all their might. The guards of the Automotive Alliance Research Institute had already been beaten back. Now, they could only face a tragic defeat. "Where is the technology? Hand it over to me!" Humphrey walked into the research institute that had been breached and shouted. At this moment, all the guards in the research institute had been beaten unconscious. The only ones left were the executives in the automotive industry and the researchers. Hearing Humphrey's request, the group of people immediately smiled bitterly. "What technology? We don't have it!" "You liar! I have been watching your team the entire time since you went to that island till now. How do you not have it?" Humphrey didn't believe them. When he attacked Harry's industrial island, Humphrey was the one who was ready to ambush them. The people of the Automotive Alliance felt wronged. They still thought that it was Humphrey who snatched the technical information from them. "Stop beating them up. We really don't have any technical information. All we have is a worthless drive with nothing on it. If you don't believe me, you can look at it yourself." A person couldn't stand being beaten up. He could only tell the truth. He said in disbelief, "What did you say? The technical information you have is also fake?" Humphrey still didn't dare to believe it, but judging from the expressions of these people, it didn't seem to be fake. Thus, he immediately ordered his subordinates to send the technical information in the hard drive to Mel, asking him to verify if it was real or fake. At first, Mel saw that Humphrey had sent the information over. He was so happy that he jumped a few times on the spot, thinking that he had finally gotten the technology. But after Humphrey's report, Mel also quickly got his technical staff to analyze it. The result was unacceptable to everyone. The information from the Automotive Alliance was also fake. How could it be? How could it be fake? It was clearly obtained from the Research Institute. How could it be fake? Humphrey muttered to himself. His face was pale. When the people of Automotive Alliance saw his expression, they finally understood what was going on. Humphrey nodded sadly. "We have all been fooled." After saying that, he killed himself before anyone could react. He couldn't bear the consequences of such an outcome. He could only choose to take the easy way out. He might as well give himself a quick death. However, Humphrey was happy to end his own life. The rest of the people were unhappy. They had spent so much money and waited for so long. They had lost so many people. Harry laughed until his stomach hurt. "Callie is a genius. She only needed to change out a few files to toy with everyone," Harry said with a smile. Callie had thought quickly and had identified the target of this attack and chose to swap out the most sensitive data that Harry owned with some worthless data. She had effectively defeated the intruders before they even set foot on the same floor as the database. Now that Harry was watching them kill each other, he couldn't help but laugh at all the people that had attacked him. They wasted their lives over something they had never gotten their hands on. Even more fortunately, the council had suffered as well from their wasted efforts to steal from Harry, and that made him even happier. The royal family was greatly dissatisfied with the council because the council didn't help the royal family and instead helped the Automotive Alliance. Mel hated the council. Had he the means to bring them down, he would have already sent his men to attack them. Right now, Mel had a fraction of the men he started with. Because they didn't get the technical information and the royal family had lost Humphrey, they cut off all their communications and made no moves to attack anyone. The Automotive Alliance was also negatively affected by the attack. Many of the members had left the group shortly after, effectively crippling their new company. The council took advantage of the situation and secretly acquired a large number of shares. In the end, it surpassed the shares of the Alliance and took the company private. With this company acquisition, the council had gained an advantage over Harry. They were now his direct rivals in the automotive industry, and they were willing to do anything to crush him. Harry knew that the council would sit and wait to strike when the right opportunity presented itself. Harry took the thought out of his head for the moment and forgot about the Automotive Alliance. He turned his focus to his own islands and made sure to fortify them in every possible way. The exploits that the intruders used to sneak in were identified and made unusable. The whole process took a long time before Harry was certain his assets were safe. In the future, if someone tried to attack Industrial Island again, it wouldn't be as easy. After reorganizing the defenses of his territory, Harry sailed out to sea to find his younger sister, Michaela. Today, Michaela's school organized a field study expedition. He planned to go with her. In any case, Harry didn't know why, but he had to accompany his sister to go there. Michaela's school specialized in ocean research. Most of the time, she had to go to the sea. She was given equal parts study and hands-on experience, which would help cement the things she learned in class to the things she learned in the field. Under normal circumstances, the school would provide specialized ships for this kind of sea expedition study. However, this time was rather special. The ship had already been loaned away by the other schools and had yet to be returned. Michaela's inspection activities were all arranged on a fixed schedule and couldn't wait indefinitely. Therefore, after learning about this matter, Harry took the initiative to provide his yacht, the Narwhal. He didn't even offer to charge a fee to the school. Michaela's professor agreed immediately. So today, Harry set off to meet Michaela. He first took a boat to his sister's school pier to pick her up. The Ocean University in Florida had its own small port. It wasn't large, so Harry couldn't drive the Narwhal directly to the pier. Harry hadn't arrived yet, but Michaela and her class were already waiting for him. "Michaela, I heard that your brother is a super rich man. What kind of ship will he lend us this time?" someone asked curiously. After entering the school, Michaela's temperament wasn't ordinary, and her daily attire was extremely extravagant. Everyone knew that Michaela was rich and beautiful. However, the only thing they didn't know was how wealthy her family was. After all, Michaela usually kept a low profile in school. Although she ate well and dressed in fancy clothes, she wasn't dining at five-star restaurants or wearing the latest fashion. It was only because Michaela didn't want to attract too much attention. But today, no matter how much she wanted to keep a low profile, she couldn't keep a low profile anymore. After all, to be able to provide the school with a boat for free, let everyone know that she had to have a fairly rich family. Yachts weren't cheap, and most people wouldn't rent them out to others, especially for free. "Michaela, I heard that your brother is a super rich man. What kind of ship will he lend us this time?" someone asked curiously. It was only because Michaela didn't want to attract too much attention. But today, no matter how much she wanted to keep a low profile, she couldn't keep a low profile anymore. After all, to be able to provide the school with a boat for free, let everyone know that she had to have a fairly rich family. Yachts weren't cheap, and most people wouldn't rent them out to others, especially for free. "Michaela, I heard that your brother is not married yet. What's his type? Can you tell me?" A girl's eyes lit up as she asked. The surrounding boys immediately felt unhappy. They were surrounded by their beautiful classmates and would fall head over heels for them, while the girls barely even noticed the guys in their class. They were all eagerly looking at the tall, rich, and handsome man. Harry had finally arrived and made all the boys jealous and all the girls swoon. There was no woman who didn't wish to have a relationship with such a man. "Michaela, you'd let us know if he was single, right?" Michaela looked at her female classmates. "You guys can calm down. My brother has high standards," Michaela said without hiding anything. Everyone looked over when they heard the loud horn coming from the ocean. They saw a luxurious yacht slowly approaching from the distance. The shell of the yacht was as bright as a mirror. All the students could see Harry's Narwhal approaching. As a super long-distance exploration yacht, the Narwhal was huge. Just looking at it from afar was already unbelievable. When they arrived closer to the yacht from the smaller yacht, they realized just how big it was. "Michaela, is this your brother's boat?" the girl asked with stars in her eyes. She had guessed that Harry was rich, but not rich enough to own a super yacht as grand as the Narwhal. "Yes, it is," Michaela nodded. The students all gasped collectively. After they docked the Narwhal, Harry walked out of the driver's seat and appeared on the deck of the ship. The people waiting on the shore, especially the girls, exclaimed in a low voice. Harry was even more handsome than they originally thought. Furthermore, unlike those useless playboys who ate and played all day long, all of them looked dispirited. Harry persisted in training every day, and with June as his trainer, he had grown fairly strong. Harry had gained a bit of muscle and looked rather toned through his shirt. He was one of the most handsome men that these girls had ever seen. The group of girls were brazenly flirting, causing the boys beside them to roll their eyes. In their hearts, they were extremely jealous of Harry, but they didn't dare to show it on the surface. If it was someone else, these boys would probably start berating them. However, in front of Harry, they didn't have any confidence at all. The boys could only suppress the jealousy and silently curse the infatuated women, hoping that they would wake up and stop daydreaming. "Michaela, ask your classmates to board the boat. What are you all standing there for?" Harry was on the boat, and when he saw that the people on the ground were all dumbstruck, he urged her to get them moving. "Okay, everyone, get on the boat and bring your luggage," Michaela called out. This trip required around a week's time. They had all packed accordingly. There were also all kinds of equipment that they needed during the inspection and research. However, when it came to moving the luggage, the girls wouldn't do it. After Harry called them to board the ship, the girls all squeezed together and rushed towards the ship. The girls left their luggage for the boys to carry onto the ship, which they weren't happy with. After the group of girls boarded the boat, they started shouting and yelling at all the amenities. "Hello, Professor!" Harry greeted the professor who was leading the team and shook hands with him. "You're Michaela's brother, Harry? It's so nice to meet you." The professor greeted Harry warmly. Professors from most Ivy League schools were usually very arrogant. They had been given confidence in their expertise in their respective fields. Most of the time, they would look down on people like Harry. Michaela's professor, Henninger, was no exception. However, when it came to Harry, he didn't dare to show that kind of pride. Harry had donated a lot of money to the university, which led to a significant salary increase and bonuses for Henninger. With this knowledge, Henninger was going to be as respectful as he could. As a professor in charge of research projects, he needed financial support for every research project he carried out. Especially for independent projects, Henninger had to pay for the trip himself. Other than the support from the school, Harry could fund all the trips Henninger had been planning for years. Therefore, Henninger really wanted to build a good relationship with Harry. When they got to know each other, he was hoping to ask Harry for sponsors like this regularly. Harry wasn't used to Henninger's passionate eyes. He kept feeling that this person seemed to be plotting something. After the small talk, Harry said, "I'll arrange rooms for everyone. After all, we have to stay at sea for a week." "We're so sorry to trouble you, Harry." Henninger was trying to be overly polite. "It's just a small matter. I rarely use this ship," Harry said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he turned around and called Michaela. "Michaela, call your classmates and we can arrange the rooms." Harry's narwhal could allow over 100 people to live on it for a long period of time. If the boat was loaded with supplies, they could live on the sea for more than 2 months. If there were fewer people, they could stay out for much longer. There were less than 20 of them on the trip in total. There were enough supplies to last them a year, which was well over the week that the trip would take. They didn't even have to worry about running out of fuel. In fact, the engine of the narwhal now didn't need oil anymore. After Harry's super battery was produced, Harry made some changes to the narwhal. The power engines of the past were all removed and replaced with the current pure electric engine, relying on the power supply from the super battery. Not only was it full of power, but it didn't need to be recharged for months at a time. The new motors and battery had significantly reduced the amount of space needed to move the ship. The motors themselves were only about as big as the propellers, and the batteries took up a small fraction of the original fuel tank. This gave Harry room for more amenities. The failure rate of the new engine was also reduced to a very small degree. The previous engine was a newer model for boats, but still required a lot of maintenance to keep it running. It was also very easy for it to malfunction, but the new electric engine structure was much simpler. Even Harry didn't need to hire professional maintenance personnel. He could complete the maintenance work himself. There were more than 100 guest rooms in the hull of the ship. It was more than enough to accommodate Michaela's classmates. He brought these people to each room. They were all luxuriously decorated rooms. After everyone entered their rooms, the first thing they did was not unpack their luggage. Instead, they took out their phones to take pictures and videos. They first posted it on their Instagram to show off. Harry was too lazy to stop this kind of behavior. There were no secrets on his ship that he was afraid would be leaked. At first, the boys and girls were still sneaking around. When they saw that Harry didn't mind, and didn't stop them either, Harry had saved the best rooms for himself and Michaela. Of course, Harry wouldn't allow her classmates to take any pictures of these rooms. The room that Henninger was assigned to was one of the better rooms. Harry wanted him to be treated slightly better than students out of respect. After all the arrangements were made, Harry took up the anchor and left the port, heading towards the area that Henninger had detailed. The place he was going to go this time was a dark reef area near the equator. The reef here was rising and falling along with the tide, appearing and disappearing on the surface of the sea. The reefs were formed by the growth of corals over the years, and the shallow waters nearby were a paradise for countless aquatic creatures. There were many varieties of marine creatures here, and a lot of research could be done on them. After going out to sea, everyone noticed that the weather today wasn't bad. The sea was calm and the weather was very clear. The calm sea surface reflected the clouds in the sky. The sky was incomparably blue, and so was the sea surface. Harry's yacht sailed in it, and it felt as if they were sailing in a dream. Many of Michaela's classmates had never been out to shore before. It was the first time they saw such beautiful scenery. They were so shocked that their hearts trembled. Once they came back to reality, all the girls went back to their rooms to change clothes. When they came out, they were all wearing bikinis. Then, they consciously jumped into the swimming pool on the boat and started to chatter and play. Harry had turned around from the pool and went back to the cockpit. In the driver's seat, Michaela was looking at the electronic nautical chart out of boredom. Harry smiled and said, "Why don't you go play with your classmates?" Michaela curled her lips. "Not really interested in having my classmates ogle me while I try to sit in the sun." Harry shook his head and didn't say anything else. From the bottom of his heart, Harry actually quite liked Michaela's conservative attitude. He liked that his sister had standards and wouldn't be running from relationship to relationship. Harry had always hated those kinds of people. "I haven't really practiced driving the boat ever since you taught me. Can I take the helm?" Michaela said with anticipation. Harry shrugged. "Sure." After saying that, he moved the chair to Michaela. Michaela sat in the driver's seat happily. She wiped her hands and sat down solemnly. Seeing her serious look, Harry smiled and said, "Actually, driving a boat, especially a big boat like this, is boring." "No, I think it's very fun." She looked very happy. Harry smiled and shook his head. She still felt that the novelty had not passed, which was why she found it interesting. However, when she got familiar with it, she would begin to see the boredom in it. Big boats weren't rocked as easily as speedboats, so piloting them could usually be handled by autopilot. Without autopilot, most of the time the driver at the helm would barely even touch the wheel if an adjustment to the course was needed.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to our show. We understand the comfort of hearing your favorite show in a familiar voice, and we do try our best to not meddle with that. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, we had to unfortunately change the narrator of this show. From here onwards, you will hear the show in a new voice. We hope you will continue to shower your love and support over the show like you always have. Keep listening to more such amazing shows only on Pocket FM. Stay tuned.
Especially on the sea, there was nothing at all to look at, just endless miles of open ocean and sky. Most people would look at the clouds and try to pick out ones that are like everyday objects. Besides that, there wasn't much to see. The narwhal had a perfect autopilot system, and normally it doesn't need to be manually piloted. As long as the destination was entered, it would plan a route and would pilot itself there without any more input. The artificial intelligence system within the ship would also avoid all kinds of dangerous situations in advance and automatically update the route. As expected, after Michaela drove excitedly for more than 10 minutes, she began to slowly quiet down. After another 10 minutes, she pulled her face down. I realized you're right. Driving a big ship is really boring. Harry said, Right? Actually, we don't even need to drive. We can reach our destination by autopilot. Then why are you still in the cockpit? Harry scratched his head and said, I'm avoiding your classmates and that professor of yours. I don't like the way they look at me. That professor kept looking at me like a psychopath. Michaela laughed out loud. You think so? Henninger is very normal. He has a family and a bedroom. He even has 2 children. Harry said, but the look in his eyes was not right. I can't think of any other possibility. Michaela thought that her brother was confused and said, that's because you have money. Henninger wants to make you happy. Just get to know him and fund some of his research, and I'm sure he'll leave you alone. Harry was stunned. He could just tell me that. He doesn't have to beat around the bush. You really want to give him money? Harry spread out his hands. I don't see why not. I've got money, and he wants to do some research. It's not like he could spend all that much anyway. Harry, be serious. Harry nodded, indicating that he was very serious. In school now, it was different from before. Giving money like this would avoid the awkwardness that Harry hated. It would also help Michaela establish a good relationship with her professor. After sailing for a day at sea, because the narwhal maintained its high speed, it arrived at the destination of research when the sky had just turned dark. It wasn't smart to dive at night, so Harry found a shallow bay and parked the boat. Michaela's classmates had all spent the day on the ship and had thought that they'd seen the best that had been offered. However, the dinner at night shocked them once again. The luxurious dinner prepared by Harry left everyone speechless. They had never seen such delicious food before and almost couldn't wait to eat to their heart's content. Thankfully, none of them were greedy and all sat and waited before filling their plates with food. Harry was surprised that they were all well-mannered at the dinner table when he had seen them being rowdy by the pool. Harry, You didn't need to make all these meals just for us, Henninger said in a flattered manner. Harry said without a care, it's just food. I don't see the problem. You're already giving us this ride for free, and now you're spending all this money on such fancy food. How can I continue to let you spend money? Henninger said respectfully. In fact, he was very happy that Harry could treat them so well. Harry didn't think anything of it. He was happy to treat these people to the best kind of food, no matter the cost. Some of the food has been on the ship since the last resupply. There are some logistics to running this boat, and we either need to use the food or throw it out. I'd hate to throw it out, and I'm happy to have made it for all of you. So don't feel bad about eating as much as you want. Harry's plain words caused waves in the hearts of the others. Henninger looked at the top-grade caviar and truffles on his plate. These ingredients were even more valuable than gold, but would commonly go to waste on yachts and other events where they were served. Everyone, don't just stand there. Dig in, Harry told them. Only then did the others wake up from their shock. They put down the uneasiness in their hearts and used all their strength to destroy the luxurious feast on the table. The entire scene wasn't exquisite at all, like those who were used to eating big meals. Instead, it was like a group of gluttons wolfing down all kinds of food. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they all looked at the time and saw that it was still early, so they chose not to go to bed just yet. Harry opened up the entertainment area on the ship and provided it for everyone to play. Not only did the narwhal have food and beds, it also had all kinds of entertainment facilities, movies, video games, table tennis, and even a basketball court. Of course, what people looked forward to the most was the miniature submarine at the bottom of the ship. This kind of sightseeing submarine could take 4 people at a time and dive dozens of meters under the sea. After Michaela's classmates saw this submarine, they didn't want to play anything else and were ready to go to the bottom of the sea for a stroll. This was the research area, and the maximum depth was no more than 100 meters. Harry didn't say no. He let Michaela be the pilot and brought her classmates to the bottom of the sea to take a look at the night scene in batches. The bottom of the sea at night was also very charming, especially under the light of the submarine. It was like even more of a dream than when they were sailing across the sea. Michaela was very skilled at piloting the small submarine. Therefore, Harry was assured that she would bring her classmates to the bottom of the sea safely. As for Harry himself, he was prepared to dive without any equipment. When June trained him, she had slotted days where they would train freediving. Today, Harry wanted to challenge his diving limits again. In the training, he didn't use any diving equipment to dive to a depth of 50 meters. Today, Harry wanted to see if he could break his personal record. After Michaela drove the mini-submarine into the sea, Harry also jumped into the sea and followed her down. Inside the submarine, a few girls saw Harry outside and exclaimed, "It's fine. My brother always dives like this. He's used to it," Michaela said nonchalantly. The girls were amazed. They admired Harry's versatility, and one of them asked how far down he could dive. 50 to 60 meters. Let's see if he can break his record." A few girls were lying on the porthole, staring at Harry without blinking. All of them were falling more in love with Harry. Harry looked at the depth meter on his hand. He was already at 50 meters. In the past, when he reached this depth, he would feel uncomfortable. After all, the pressure of the sea was very great. Normal people could only dive 20 meters at most, and that already was a dangerous depth. 50 meters was a depth that ordinary people couldn't reach. But Harry felt that he could still dive deeper. Michaela, who had been following the submarine beside her, flashed a few times with the light and asked Harry about his condition. Harry waved his hand and pointed downward, indicating that he still needed to dive another 10 meters. Michaela responded with the light and told him to be careful. Harry gestured in an affirmative and continued to dive. When he reached the depth of 60 meters, Harry felt that he couldn't continue. This was the limit of his body. If he continued, he would be in danger. He began to slowly swim upwards, preparing to return. Michaela carefully followed behind him and looked after Harry. Diving without any equipment was a very dangerous thing. She had to look after Harry. If there were any accidents, she would have to rely on the mechanical arm of the submarine to save him. After Harry rose to the depth of 30 meters, a black shadow suddenly flashed past the edge of the submarine's light. Because it was behind Harry, he didn't see it, but the people in the submarine saw it. "Michaela, I think I saw something just now." The girl became nervous. At the bottom of the sea, especially at night, it was quite scary. "Are you seeing things? Why didn't I see anything?" said one girl. Yeah, don't make everyone nervous, said another. The other girls expressed that they didn't see anything, but after being shouted at by the first girl, everyone became afraid. Michaela kept her eyes on Harry, so she didn't see any black shadows. Are you hallucinating? If you feel uncomfortable, hold on a little longer, Michaela said. She knew that people underwater would hallucinate due to various circumstances. I saw it clearly just now. It was just a very large black shadow that flashed over, the first girl said. Maybe I didn't. The girl herself wasn't too sure either. However, just as everyone thought that she had been hallucinating, something happened. Outside, Harry was heading toward the surface of the sea, but after diving, he needed to slowly float up. If he was too anxious, it would cause his lungs to hurt. After reaching a safe depth of more than 10 meters, Harry heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. To be honest, he was still very nervous about challenging the record of 60 meters. But at this moment, outside the range of the submarine's light, a 2-meter-long black shadow suddenly dashed toward Harry. Inside the submarine, the girls were shocked. This time, they saw clearly that the black shadow was a shark. What was even more dangerous was that this shark seemed to think of Harry as its prey. It was swimming towards Harry at an extremely fast speed. It also opened its ferocious mouth as if it wanted to swallow or bite Harry. In the submarine, Michaela was so frightened by the sudden change that she almost cried. She had no time to react at all and could only watch helplessly as the shark swam toward Harry. Although the submarine had a mechanical arm, it couldn't be used as a weapon. Even if she wanted to stop the shark, it was impossible to catch up with its maneuverability. Just as the submarine was in chaos, Harry, who was outside, felt a sense of danger. He subconsciously took out a dagger from his waist, then quickly turned around and swung it. A stream of blood splashed out from the sea, but it wasn't Harry's. It was the shark's. In the nick of time, Harry dodged the shark's attack and successfully left a wound on the shark. The shark became even more agitated. Its simple brain structure couldn't understand how a seemingly harmless prey could cause so much damage to it. Therefore, after being stabbed by Harry, the shark didn't escape. Instead, it swam, turned around, and attacked again. This time, Michaela had time to react. She dove the submarine towards the shark. There was a dull sound through the hull. The shark was knocked away by the submarine, and it rolled over the top of it and swam down. Although it was a metallic submarine, the power of this miniature sightseeing submarine wasn't very strong. Thus, after this collision, the shark wasn't injured or scared. Instead, it was angered. After circling once, it charged toward Harry again. Michaela and the others in the submarine were all scared silly. The teeth that were revealed when it opened its mouth were very scary. As long as Harry was bitten, he would definitely not be able to escape. Because of the collision just now, the control on the submarine became a little chaotic. Michaela wanted to control the submarine to stop the shark from attacking Harry again. However, in the sea, the shark was still more agile. Hence, there was absolutely no way to stop it this time. They could only watch helplessly as Harry was about to be attacked by the shark. Harry could see his attacker and was able to react quickly. However, a dagger that was no more than 2 inches long was insufficient compared to the sharp teeth of a shark. The shark was fierce. After going for Harry once again, it attacked even faster than before. If it was any other ordinary person, they would have been scared out of their wits. However, through the various experiences that Harry had gone through, he had trained his mind to be incomparably firm. In Savage Mountain, Harry had never been frightened by those unknown underground monsters. He wouldn't be afraid of just a common shark. Harry quickly adjusted his posture in the sea, making it more conducive to defense and attack. The moment the shark was about to bite him, he instantly moved his body and slightly dodged, avoiding the bite of the ferocious mouth. Then, he quickly reached out his hand to grab the shark's gills while his other hand stabbed with the dagger. Harry didn't stab randomly. Instead, he calmly and accurately stabbed the shark in the eye. This was the only thing he could do to the shark. Because the dagger was too short, if it hit the shark's body, it wouldn't cause any fatal damage. The eye was the place where Harry could cause the greatest damage. Therefore, the shark's body began to shake violently under his attack. At the top of the food chain in the ocean, sharks weren't invincible. In the submarine, Michaela and the others didn't see everything clearly. From their point of view, Harry's arm had been bitten by the shark, and then he was entangled in a fight. Red blood instantly rose from the sea and spread out. "Harry!" Michaela was so scared that she shouted in pain. But it didn't help. She could only watch everything happen in the submarine, but she couldn't do anything. "It's over! It's over! It's over! Michaela, your brother's in danger!" The other girls were also flustered and were at a loss for what to do. The speed of the sightseeing submarine was too slow, and they were unable to catch up to the speed of the shark. They watched as the shark bit Harry and disappeared into the dark sea. Michaela clenched her teeth so hard they almost broke. She also knew that there was nothing she could do if she continued to stay here. She could only tremble all over and drive the submarine to the surface of the sea. They had no way to rescue Harry, so they could only seek help from the people on the narwhal, hoping that there was still time. In fact, although Harry dodged the shark's attack, the situation wasn't optimistic. It was true that he caused damage to the shark, but he didn't kill the shark. Therefore, Harry still held the dagger tightly in the shark's eye and didn't dare to let go. Once he let go, the shark would have the ability to continue attacking. This time, because it was heavily injured, the shark would become even more ferocious. Therefore, Harry could only tightly grab the gills of the shark and struggle with it in the sea. Harry had already been under the water for some time. He was reaching the limit that he could hold his breath. Fortunately, Harry wasn't the kind to take unnecessary risks. Before he went into the sea, Harry had worn a portable oxygen tank on his hip. This kind of equipment was very small. It was impossible to use it to dive for a very long time. It could only be used for emergencies. Fortunately, it was convenient to use. Harry had already brought it along when the shark attacked. He didn't have to worry about breathing for now, but he had to think about how to get rid of the shark. Otherwise, he would be dragged into the depths of the ocean. The situation was still very dangerous, so Harry had to think of how to get away. On the other side, Michaela had already piloted the submarine to the surface of the sea. Then, under the strange gazes of the people on the boat, she cried for help. "Quickly, save my brother! He was attacked by a shark!" At this moment, everyone on the boat was stunned. No one had expected that they would meet sharks here, and the one who was in danger was Harry, who was the most important person. Harry was the sponsor for this expedition. If he encountered any danger, none of them would be able to explain it to the authorities when they returned. Henninger was also shocked, and his face turned pale. What should we do? How can we save him when he's still in the ocean?" he said. "Yeah, what should we do? Do we have any weapons and equipment on the ship?" one of the students asked. "This is a yacht, not a warship," Michaela said. The people on the boat all panicked, except for Henninger. No one had any experience dealing with such an emergency. In fact, even Henninger was currently in a daze. Although his profession was to study marine life, research was one thing, fighting a shark was another. Henninger didn't have any experience with freediving. He just stood there in a daze and froze. He didn't even have any useful suggestions. Even though no one knew how to rescue Harry, Michaela wasn't panicking. She saw that everyone was stunned, so she gritted her teeth and went into the cockpit alone. She started the yacht and headed toward the sea where Harry was diving. Michaela knew that Harry was bitten by a shark. It was impossible for him to stay where he was. She didn't know where he'd been taken. Seeing the empty sea surface, Michaela's heart was filled with sorrow. "Harry, where are you? Please don't let anything happen to you." Harry was in danger, and it happened right under Michaela's nose. She felt incomparably terrified. If she lost Harry, she would be devastated. She only hoped that all of this was just a nightmare. When she woke up from her dream, she would be able to see Harry. Unfortunately, this was reality, not a nightmare. "Harry, come back to me! I'm so scared!" Michaela ran out of the cockpit and shouted toward the sea while lying on the railing of the deck. In her heart, she was looking for a miracle. She hoped that Harry would appear in front of her the next moment. On the deck below, Henninger was anxiously stamping his feet. He blamed himself for disrespecting Harry and only thinking about him as a bag of money. He saw that there was no trace of Harry at all on the surface of the sea. After such a long time, he knew that Harry was most likely dead. Henninger wished he could just jump into the sea and die for Harry so that he wouldn't have to face the blame of others when he got back.
If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come. This is too scary,
one of the girls said. Harry was right in front of us. He was bitten by the shark. The sea was full of blood. He must have been eaten by the shark, said one girl in the submarine. The few girls who went into the sea with Michaela just now were so scared that they started crying. They had never been in any traumatic events their whole lives. They would probably have psychological trauma related to the sea in the future. They'd most likely drop out of university because of this. Just as everyone on the ship mourned for Harry's death, their hearts were filled with sorrow. A sharp-eyed boy suddenly froze as he looked at the sea in the distance. He then took off his glasses in disbelief and wiped them off. Then, he looked into the distance once again. He seemed to have discovered something, but because it was night, even though it was a full moon today, he was still unable to see clearly what was in the distance. "Everyone, look over there! Is there something on the surface of the water?" the boy shouted. The moment he shouted, he attracted everyone's attention. After all, this was a sensitive time. Everyone hoped that Harry would miraculously survive. However, the possibility of this happening was too small. After all, he was attacked by a shark, and he was still underwater. There are too many people who die from shark attacks every year, and most of them have no chance of surviving. However, everyone still held a glimmer of hope for Harry. They hoped that he'd be able to come back. Even if he was bitten, he could potentially survive. Michaela heard the sound. She followed everyone's gaze and indeed saw some shadows floating on the sea in the distance. It was just that it was too far, and she couldn't see clearly. "It's probably trash floating on the sea. Everyone, don't hold too much hope," someone reminded them. Michaela was worried and returned to the cockpit. She took out a pair of binoculars and looked at the floating object in the distance. The binoculars were expensive, and she could see very clearly. Most importantly, it had many built-in features. One of them was night vision. Harry had taught Michaela how to use these binoculars before. She skillfully adjusted the function of night vision and then looked at the blurry shadow in the distance. Michaela jumped up in excitement after looking at it for just a moment.
"It's my brother! He's still alive! He's still alive!"
Michaela jumped up and shouted. She was crying tears of joy. Others' faces were full of shock. They couldn't believe that Harry had survived. He had been underwater for so long and was attacked by a shark in the middle of the ocean. There was nowhere to escape to. He was stuck in the shark's domain. That was why everyone found it hard to accept. For a moment, they had forgotten that they should go and rescue Harry. Fortunately, there was still someone who understood. Henninger stomped his feet and looked at his disappointing students. He shouted, "Stop standing around! We have to go and save him!" About 10 minutes ago, Harry was engaged in a life-or-death battle with the shark. Although it looked very dangerous, Harry actually gained the upper hand. However, this didn't mean that Harry was safe. Although the shark was seriously injured by Harry's dagger, it still had the ability to struggle. If Harry let go, this shark might still be able to kill Harry. Therefore, Harry could only use one hand to firmly hold onto the shark's gills to prevent it from getting away. His other hand continuously stabbed the shark's head with the dagger. Unfortunately, Harry couldn't exert much strength in the water. This dagger wasn't at all that sharp. Facing the shark's hard skull, it barely cut through the skin. It couldn't stab into the shark's brain and kill it quickly. Harry didn't dare to let go. The shark kept struggling, trying to get rid of Harry. But gradually, the shark stopped struggling. The simple oxygen cylinder in Harry's mouth was also gradually depleting its oxygen. Seeing that the shark had stopped moving, Harry prepared to float to the surface of the sea. If he stayed in the sea any longer, he would suffocate. However, Harry didn't expect it to be smart, and it only pretended to be dead. After Harry let go of the shark, it started moving again. It opened its bloody mouth and chased after Harry again. Harry didn't expect that the shark would still be able to attack. Harry was completely out of his element. Fortunately, it was a full moon tonight, and there were no clouds in the sky, which allowed him to see, if only a little. After being chased by the ferocious shark, Harry could only helplessly swim up to the surface of the sea. His oxygen cylinder was about to run out of oxygen. If he didn't go to the surface of the sea to breathe, he would soon lose his strength. Fortunately, during the time he was fighting with the shark, It was already close to the surface. After Harry floated up, he took off his oxygen pump, took a few breaths, and then plunged into the sea again. He couldn't let his guard down. The shark was still chasing him closely. The shark was obviously not as agile as before. It had used up a lot of its energy. Harry couldn't be careless. Just as he dived back into the sea, he saw a bloody mouth moving towards him. Harry quickly dodged and waved his dagger again, stabbing at the shark. This time, Harry seemed to have accidentally stabbed the shark's heart, and a large amount of blood gushed out. The seawater around Harry was dyed with a layer of invisible black shadow. Under this fatal blow, the shark exhausted its last bit of strength. It turned around and died. Harry was worried that the shark was still faking its death. He stabbed it a few more times before swimming back to the surface. After taking a few deep breaths, Harry had survived and could clearly hear his heart beating loudly in his ears. Even though Harry had been calm during the fight, the adrenaline had given him the ability to focus on the shark and prevented his body from panicking from the attack. He turned around and looked at the shark in front of him, which was starting to sink. Harry thought for a while and decided to grab it and bring it back. This was his spoils of war after his fight. It was very valuable to keep. A lot of rich people had trophies from hunting or from collecting. Harry thought he could do the same, though he had gotten his trophy through self-defense. The meaning was naturally different, and it was worth remembering. A 7-foot-long shark. Although it wasn't the biggest shark, it was still impressive to have survived with just a small knife. Harry grabbed the shark's tail and tried his best to float on the surface of the sea. He looked around. He was looking for a trace of the narwhal. After the battle just now, it had already left its previous position. As for exactly where it was, Harry wasn't sure, but he knew that he wasn't too far away from the boat. Harry hoped that he could find the yacht as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be very tiring to drag such a large, dead shark. Fortunately, he didn't have to wait too long before he saw the light on the narwhal. Looking at the direction the light was moving in, it was obvious that it was heading toward him. On the narwhal, Michaela drove the yacht toward Harry. The closer they were, the clearer they could see. The situation was better than everyone had imagined. The thing floating on the sea wasn't Harry's corpse. He was clearly still alive and well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the strength to wave at the yacht. Michaela cried as she drove the yacht. This attack had really frightened her. She didn't dare to imagine the consequences of losing Harry. She only hoped that Harry would be safe and sound. Sure enough, her hope had come true. Her brother was still alive. Michaela came closer and stopped the boat. She quickly ran out of the cockpit and jumped off the deck. Michaela swam to Harry's side and cried as she hugged him. "Hey, don't get too excited. I'm fine. Why did you jump down? The water's too cold. You're going to get sick."
I'm just so happy. Are you really all right? I clearly saw that shark attacked you just now.
Michaela looked at Harry and said. She still couldn't believe that Harry had come back safe and sound. Michaela had witnessed how dangerous it was just now. "I'm fine. We need to get out of the water. This thing is hard to drag around," Harry said helplessly, although Harry didn't feel much discomfort when he was dissecting the shark. However, the sound of vomiting and the disgusting smell still made Harry feel nauseous. Fortunately, he held a grudge against this shark. He endured the discomfort and peeled off the shark's skull. Next, he peeled off the shark's entire jaw and teeth. This process seemed to be even more bloody than he expected. Those with poor tolerance had long hidden inside the cabin and didn't dare to appear on the deck again. Only a few of the boys stayed behind to help Harry. The shark's teeth were removed. After Harry washed them clean with seawater, he found that they were very valuable. No wonder many people like to hang shark teeth on their walls. This kind of hideous and beautiful thing could be considered a different kind of art piece. "Harry, the teeth are taken off. The rest is useless, right? What should we do with them?" a boy asked. Harry said, "Throw it into the sea." "But aren't you afraid of attracting more sharks?" a boy asked worriedly. Harry shrugged his shoulders. "It doesn't matter. It's fine as long as we don't play in the sea anymore." "That's true. Because of this, I don't want to go into the sea anymore." "Well, it's better to stay on the boat during this expedition. This area of the sea is a bit dangerous." As the boys spoke, they prepared to throw the remaining body of the shark into the sea. However, at this moment, something fell out of the shark's stomach. Hearing movement, Harry also walked over and saw the strange thing that fell on the deck. Harry was also surprised. He didn't expect that there would be such a thing in the belly of a shark. However, there was a vague flesh hanging on it, so he couldn't tell what it was. "Take a hose and wash it," Harry said. Shortly after, the object began to take shape. "No way! It's actually a clam!" a student yelled. A few of the students started discussing this curiously. Harry was also very curious. Sharks ate all meat, so it was odd to see one with a clam inside of it. The clam in front of him was the size of a kid's snow sled, and it had a hard outer shell. "Then how should we deal with this thing? Should we throw it into the sea with the shark body?" someone asked. "No, there might be pearls inside the clam. Open it and take a look," another student said. The clam was in the shark's stomach. Although it hadn't been digested, the shark's gastric juices had corroded quite a bit of its shell. This caused the shell of the clam to still emit a nauseating smell, even though it had been washed with water. "I just want to open it and take a look. If there's nothing inside, just throw it away," Harry said. After saying that, he started. Enduring the unpleasant smell, he used a tool to pry open the clam's shell. In the end, it was even more shocking when it was opened. Inside the open clamshell, two things appeared. It was a black pearl, which was exceedingly rare. However, for Harry, a mere black pearl wasn't enough to tempt him. Instead, it was another item inside the clamshell that shocked Harry. It was actually a small bottle the size of a fist. The bottle was transparent and had been sealed, and inside the bottle was a piece of paper. Everyone heard the news and rushed to the deck. They all wanted to see this bizarre scene with their own eyes. A clam fell out of the shark's mouth. There was also a black pearl and a sealed bottle inside the clam. And inside the bottle was a piece of paper. "Harry, I heard you made a big discovery?" Michaela also squeezed forward and asked. When she heard that there was a commotion here, of course, she came to take a look. Harry raised the bottle in his hand and said, "I found this. It seems to be a piece of paper, but I don't know what it says." "Could it be a treasure map? It might have been left behind by pirates long ago," Michaela asked curiously. Harry suddenly smiled. "You watch too many movies." Henninger's expression became serious. He thought for a moment and said slowly, "It seems there really is." "Huh? No way, Professor. There were pirates here in the past?" Henninger nodded and said, "This used to be a common trading route because we're still close to a few ports. It hasn't been common for a while because boats can go much further and much faster. It's entirely possible that there were pirates that had come out here." "And what do you think? Is this treasure map left behind by that group of pirates?" Michaela asked. Harry interrupted her and said, "Wait a minute. Why are you so sure? Maybe it's just an ordinary bottle." "Then hurry up and open it and you'll know," Michaela urged. Harry nodded, took out a small knife, and knocked out the cork that was sealing at the mouth of the bottle. After he poured out the paper that was rolled up inside, Harry started to read it. The others also stuck their heads out and widened their eyes, wanting to see it clearly. After a moment, Harry put down his hand and said to Michaela with a serious face, "You are right. This is a treasure map." "Really? It is a treasure map? Let's go and find it!" Michaela immediately became excited. The others on the ship were also very excited. If they found it, they would be rich. Harry picked up the paper again and looked at it carefully. Then he said to a group of eager students, "Although it looks like a treasure map, it's hard to tell if it's real or fake. Maybe it's a prank." "Even if it's a prank, it's worth looking for. What if it's real?" one student said. Yeah, this parchment looks very old. If there really is a treasure, then it must be very valuable," said another. They urged Harry to search for the treasure. In any case, they wouldn't lose anything if they couldn't find it. But if they found it, everyone had to have a share. Of course, Harry knew what these people were thinking, but he didn't care. First of all, Harry didn't think that the treasure was real. Secondly, if there really was a treasure, it would be a huge fortune for an ordinary person. But for Harry, it might not be a big deal. Taking the parchment paper and carefully looking at it, Harry suddenly realized that the terrain drawn on it was the island reef area they were at during the day. Harry said, "All right, if we really want to find the treasure, it's impossible for one person to do it alone. Let's go together." Everyone cheered. Michaela was the only one who pulled at Harry's sleeve. She said softly, "Harry, I was reckless just now. Are you really going to bring them to find the treasure?" Harry patted Michaela's shoulder and said, "Silly girl, the treasure is nothing to us. What's important is to experience the joy of searching. Even if we find it, so what if we give it all to them?" That's true," Michaela smiled. Only then did she react. Her brother was a super rich man. The money he earned every day was something that others would never be able to spend in a few lifetimes. Everyone started talking at the same time. Harry said, "Let's go to my workshop and study it." After saying that, he brought everyone to a spacious cabin. He placed the parchment on the projector and enlarged it on the screen. This time, everyone could clearly see the diagrams drawn on it. "Why do I feel like this map is a little familiar?" one of the students said. Everyone was confused. Harry said, "Do you all think so too? I feel the same." Henninger also exclaimed, "This is the island area where we were staying at during the day?" Everyone was shocked. No one would have thought that the location of the treasure map wasn't very far from them. Harry nodded and said, "Since everyone thinks that it's the reef area of the island, why don't we go take a look? Whether it's real or fake, we'll be doing something productive." "Yeah, it's like a dream. I can't believe it. The treasure is right next to us. We can touch it with our hands," a student said. "Since it's so close to us, what are we waiting for? Let's go look for treasure now," said another. Harry shook his head and spoke. "Why are you in such a hurry? It's already midnight. We should wait until tomorrow morning." Henninger also nodded and said, "What Harry said is right. The treasure isn't going to grow legs between now and tomorrow. We'll have no luck of finding it till tomorrow anyway." Only then did everyone suppress their excitement and disperse back to their own rooms to rest. However, it was hard to say how many of them could sleep. On the second day, after Harry woke up, he saw that the others had bags under their eyes and were all excited to get started. It seemed that none of the people in the group could sleep last night. After breakfast, Harry started the boat and headed toward the reef area under everyone's expectant eyes. This island that appeared and disappeared in the tide was actually formed by coral over the years. Most of it was submerged below the sea surface, leaving only a few reefs that breached the surface. Because he was afraid that the ship would run aground, Harry could only stop the ship in the deeper parts of the ocean. Harry took everyone to the reef area on a speedboat. The map drawn on the paper was still very clear, especially the few islands that were exposed on the surface of the sea as landmarks. Harry and the others quickly determined the location of the hidden treasure. Unfortunately, it wasn't buried on the surface of the sea, but in the reef breach that was a few meters deep. "It won't be easy for us to dig if the island is this submerged," Henninger said. All Henninger wanted to do was find the treasure. Harry said, "There's no other way. We'll have to get into the diving gear and look for it that way." After saying that, he started the speedboat again and brought everyone back to the yacht to get to the diving suits and oxygen tanks. However, Harry and the others who had returned to the narwhal didn't have time to set off again. Someone pointed at the sea level in the distance and said, "There seems to be a ship heading towards us." On the distant sea, a large ship that was about the size of the narwhal quickly sailed over, withstanding the waves. Under such circumstances, Harry had no choice but to take this matter seriously. This reef region wasn't a busy commercial route, so it was rare to see a ship passing by. Now, other than his ship, there were other ships coming over, and it was obvious that they were heading toward the narwhal. Therefore, Harry became vigilant. In the sea, especially in the open sea, nothing was surprising. Pirates were still prevalent in the modern era. "Everyone, be careful. This ship doesn't seem friendly," Harry said. This meant that the treasure hunt was off. Harry instructed everyone to be on guard. He brought Michaela to the cockpit, picked up the communication device, and used the public channel to contact the ship that was getting closer and closer. "This is the pleasure yacht Narwhal. Please state your intentions." After an electromagnetic buzzing sound, a sound came from the communication device. "We are the exploration ship, the Storm. We are in the middle of exploring this region. This is our destination. Narwhal, we will give you 10 minutes to leave this area." They wanted Harry to leave, which made him very unhappy. They were under no jurisdiction from any country this far into the ocean. Besides, Harry was the one who came here first. Harry had a guess in his heart. Perhaps this ship really was here to find the treasure. Sorry, we are here to study this reef bed. We can't leave before the mission is completed. Please leave. You can come back after we've completed the study, Harry said bluntly. His words immediately angered the people on the ship of the storm. Boss, the people on that ship aren't willing to leave. You think they're also here for the treasure? On the storm, a fierce-looking man said, It's hard to say whether this is a coincidence or not. I think this narwhal is trying to steal our treasure. The one called boss by these people was a man with an eye patch. His face was full of hair, and there was a scar that extended from his forehead to his chin. It made him look terrifying. This ship, the Storm, was a pirate ship. They usually searched for shipwrecks and lost treasures in the sea, and occasionally robbed boats. Just like Harry, this group also had a treasure map. It was even more detailed than the one that Harry had. The man wearing the eye patch thought for a moment and said, It seems that they won't leave. Then we'll have to teach them a lesson. But we have to be fast. We have to make it before tonight. The crew immediately beamed with joy. They rubbed their palms together as they looked at Harry's narwhal. They also understood what their boss meant. The reason why they were in a hurry was because today was the day when the tide retreated to its lowest point. After all, their main goal was still to search for the treasure. The treasure was buried below the surface of the sea. Taking advantage of the receding tide in the shallow waters, they could dig without any special equipment. If they waited until the tide rose and the depth of the sea rose, the difficulty of digging would be higher. Harry was still waiting for the storm's reply. But after a while, the other side replied, Kid, I told you to leave out of kindness, but you refused to leave. If that's the case, I'll have to kill you. After saying that, he cut off communications. Michaela turned pale with fright. Are they pirates? Harry nodded his head. These are real pirates. Then what should we do? Hurry up and get on the boat. Michaela had never encountered this kind of situation before, so she was a little panicky. Harry comforted her. It's fine. This boat is not just for fun. These pirates are going to be in for a surprise. Will it really work? There aren't many of us who can fight. Michaela was still worried. Harry laughed loudly. Don't worry. Trust me. After saying that, he pressed a few buttons on the control panel of the ship and walked out of the cockpit. When they arrived at the second deck cabin, Henninger was leading his students to the window nervously, watching the storm rush over. Hey, Harry, what's going on? What's that ship doing? Henninger asked when he saw Harry. It seems like they're going to attack us, Harry said in a deep voice. The students panicked. What should we do now? Henninger also panicked, but fortunately, he still knew to comfort his students. Quiet, stop arguing, listen to what Harry has to say, Harry said. I think these people are here for the treasure. They'll do anything to get it, including taking this ship. So shouldn't we run away before they board the ship? Harry, your ship should be faster than theirs, Henninger added. Harry nodded. That's for sure. No one can catch up to us if we run. Great! Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and run! Henninger said. Yeah, if we don't leave now, it'll be too late. That ship is getting closer and closer to us, a male student said. We can run away, but they're going to get the treasure. Are you willing to accept it? Harry had already said that these people were obviously here for the treasure. If they left, they would come back after they were safe. The treasure 100% would be gone if they left. When they thought about the treasure, their hearts ached. The cabin fell silent, and the group looked at each other in silence. They were even more conflicted in their hearts. They were worried that they would lose their lives if they were caught by the pirates. They were also worried that the treasure that they were so close to getting would be taken away. This kind of conflicted reaction was on their faces. Harry looked at everyone's reactions with a dark expression, but he didn't say anything. Time passed bit by bit. If they didn't run soon, the ship would be too close for them to run away. Henninger then slowly said, Compared to the treasure, life is the most important thing. If you lose your life, why would you care about the treasure? The students had considered what Henninger said, and had made them see sense. Seeing that these people were no longer in a dilemma, Harry smiled and said, Actually, you don't have to worry. My ship has sufficient defensive measures. These pirates can't do anything to us. Really? A student asked. The students were pleasantly surprised. Harry nodded. Although I don't care about treasures, I was the one who found this place first, after all. I want to experience the joy of treasure hunting. Do you need help? Just tell us, the student asked. Harry smiled and said, That's not necessary. Everyone, stay in the cabin. It will be very dangerous outside. Okay, then we'll stay here. We'll not give you any trouble, Harry, another said. When the group of people heard that they didn't need to run away, their hearts became warm again. They would fight the pirates. They were completely unaware of the narwhal's defenses. But looking at Harry's confident look, they knew that he wasn't afraid of those people. And the reason why Harry was so confident was because of the new equipment he installed on the narwhal. In the past, the narwhal was a pleasure yacht. Other than being extremely luxurious, it had no other use. However, ever since it was completely remodeled, the narwhal had morphed into something completely different. From the outside, it still looked the same as before, but underneath, it had changed almost entirely. After replacing the engine with a super battery, the narwhal actually didn't need such sufficient and powerful power just for sailing. Therefore, Callie installed a lot of newly developed special devices on the narwhal. The reason Harry had the confidence to face the pirates on the storm is because of these special devices. The narwhal was now a fortress. No one would be able to harm the deck of the narwhal. Harry was certain about it. After comforting Henninger and his students, Harry once again entered the cockpit. Harry, are you going to use the new defenses? Michaela asked. She also knew that Harry had modified this ship. However, Michaela didn't know exactly what it had been modified with. Yes. Ever since it was installed on the ship, other than a few small-scale tests, it's never been used in actual combat. Today, I can use those people to test our defenses, Harry said. Michaela was worried. Is it going to work? Don't worry. The people that designed this stuff were geniuses. Harry raised his thumb. He was very confident in the equipment on his ship. The storm was gradually approaching the narwhal. The one-eyed boss and his men saw that Harry didn't have any intention of escaping. At first, they were still a bit apprehensive, afraid that Harry would run away. After all, this was a pleasure yacht, a toy for the rich. And when rich people went out, they didn't bring bodyguards with them. However, when they sailed to the front, the two ships were about to dock, and Harry's narwhal didn't show any signs of movement. The one-eyed boss and the others became happy. They figured that Harry was scared witless and didn't know what to do. The pirates immediately laughed sinisterly. They were all waiting for the two ships to get closer and wanted to reach Harry's ship to plunder it. However, when the ships were leaning against each other, the pirates jumped onto the deck with skillful movements. Harry's ship was quiet, and there was no movement at all. There was no resistance as they had expected, nor was there any panic as they had imagined. It was so quiet that it was like a ghost ship, causing the one-eyed man and the others to feel scared. They began to figure that the boat had been abandoned and were essentially a ghost ship. Just as these people were on high alert and were about to search the cabin, a strange noise came from the narwhal. In the cockpit of the narwhal, Harry looked at the uninvited guests on the deck through the monitors and smiled. In the next moment, the one-eyed man and the others understood. The faint sound of electric currents they heard just now suddenly became clear. Then, all metal objects on the deck flashed with dazzling electrical arcs, and the sizzling sound was continuous. The one-eyed boss and the others suddenly started to twitch, and they started to writhe uncontrollably. The one-eyed boss and the others didn't even have time to figure out what had happened before they were electrocuted to the point of foaming at the mouth. Harry, how did you do that? Michaela asked in surprise when she saw this scene. Harry smiled and said, It's very simple. The entire deck of the ship was electrified. Then will we be electrocuted in the cabin? Michaela was worried. Harry shook his head. Are you stupid? Why would I set up such a trap in the cabins? The one-eyed boss and his men finally stopped. The shock had gotten them all and incapacitated them. They all had foam coming from their mouths and lay on the deck stiffly. The people who stayed on the storm saw that their boss and his men were all lying on the deck of the narwhal for no reason. They saw this and thought it was incredibly terrifying because there was no way they could see the current, except for those who were on the deck or close to them or personally experienced it. The crew on the storm were confused. and took a deep breath. One of the crew members began to talk about the narwhal being a ghost ship and that they had just seen their captain and crew become possessed. As soon as these words left his mouth, everyone else shivered. Pirates like these were always at the will of the sea and would be more likely to believe in superstitions. Therefore, the people on the storm ship really thought they had encountered a ghost ship. "But we can't just leave Boss and the others behind, can we?" one man said. Then the people on the ship looked at each other in dismay. No one dared to say that they would leave without them. After using an electric shock to cripple the pirates on board, Harry had been waiting for the rest of the people on the storm to walk right into his trap. However, after waiting for a long time and not seeing anyone else coming, Harry lost his patience. He didn't have time to waste with this group of criminals. Harry laughed again. "Do you think I can't do anything to you if you don't come out?" He pressed a few buttons on the control panel of the driver's seat. Then, a mechanism was activated on the top floor of the narwhal. Dozens of insect-like drones flew out and flew toward the storm. "Harry, what is this?" Michaela asked. "A miniature bionic drone. The size is the same as a beetle. It has built-in non-fatal poison gas. When released at close range, it can quickly paralyze people temporarily." Michaela didn't expect that her brother's ship would have something so sinister. There were all kinds of weapons that she didn't expect. This miniature drone was created by Harry's research institute when he had nothing better to do. In the end, Harry found that this thing was very useful to plot against people. It was small and could be used at any time. Moreover, it wouldn't attract attention. It was very good at hiding. It became a perfect tool to detect and hide attacks. Since it was made, Harry had not been able to use it on any live test subjects, but he didn't expect to have to use it on a research trip. Although using a mini bionic drone to take out the one-eyed boss and his group was a bit of a waste of resources. The crew members on the storm were all still arguing about who would save their captain, when suddenly they heard a buzzing sound. "What's that noise?" one of the crew said. The people on the storm quickly ignored this insignificant commotion, because if it was just bugs, no one would think it was a threat. Unfortunately, they were wrong. These weren't real bugs. They were Harry's drones, although they were a bit small in size. After entering the cabin, the bionic drones began searching. The search was to broadcast live to Harry. Harry sat comfortably in the cabin, watching every move of the storm's crew. When he saw that they seemed to think that his narwhal was a ghost ship, Harry almost fell to the ground laughing. He didn't think that these people would be so superstitious. After searching the entire ship with the miniature drone and confirming the location of all the crew, Harry ordered the attack to begin. In the cabin of the storm, a few crew members were drawing lots to decide who would save their boss. Suddenly, a strange, faintly discernible smell caught the attention of one of the crew members. Harry was in the cabin watching the footage from the monitors. He was happy to see that these crew members were idiots. In his heart, he felt that using his miniature drone to plot against people was too much fun. The enemy simply couldn't detect any abnormalities and was tricked by Harry. The poison gas released by the miniature drones was a strong condensed gas that Stephen had specially developed. A while ago, Stephen was strolling around the reflecting moon island, but in the end, he was attacked by a skunk. The stink released by the skunk lingered on Stephen's body for more than a month, traumatizing him. After that, Stephen wholeheartedly wanted to create a poison gas that was even more smelly than the skunk smell. In the end, he made the gas Harry had on his miniature drones. This gas could be compressed on a miniature drone. Once it came into contact with the air, it would quickly expand. Especially in small rooms, the gas could expand to the edges of the room in a matter of seconds. Now, these crew members on the storm became the first batch of live test subjects. After the smell began to spread, the few people in the cabin of the storm had already breathed enough of the gas to knock them unconscious. Had they been on the deck, the chance of them escaping from the gas was high, but in the cabin, it wouldn't work. The ventilation was too poor. This gave Harry the space to use his drones. In less than half a minute, the crew covered their mouths and slowly slid to the ground. All of them rolled their eyes, foam coming from their mouth. I never thought that Stephen would be able to make something so powerful, Harry praised. He also didn't expect that the gas would have such a powerful effect. In an instant, it made the enemy fall unconscious. They didn't even have time to open the door and escape. At the same time, when they asked about the stench, their entire bodies began to tremble. Through the investigation of the miniature drone, Harry already knew that everyone on the storm had been in that room and were now lying on the ground. Harry stood up and returned to Henninger's cabin. All right, the pirates have been dealt with. Everyone, be ready to work. Go out and tie the pirates up with ropes. I want them tied up so tight, they'll never be able to wriggle their way out. Harry didn't plan to kill the one-eyed boss and his men. He was quite curious about what their real intentions were. That's why he had them all tied up, so he could interrogate them when they woke up. Henninger and his students widened their eyes in shock when they heard Harry's words. They had followed Harry's instructions and hid in the cabin below. No one knew what was happening outside. Harry, are they really not going to hurt us? Henninger still found it hard to believe. Yes, it's fine. If you don't believe me, you can go and take a look. With a skeptical attitude, Henninger and the others walked out onto the deck and saw the people lying crookedly on the floor. Henninger and the others were even more shocked. Furthermore, judging from the looks of these people, they were obviously pirates. None of them were to be trifled with. Now, all of them had fallen on Harry's deck. Henninger and the others felt an inexplicable sense of respect for Harry's mysterious means. Seeing that a few students were about to flip onto the ship of the storm, Harry quickly stopped them. There's no need to go over there. If the students really went over and opened the door full of gas, they would be lying on the ground like the pirates. It would take 4 or 5 days for the gas to dissipate from the storm cabin. When that time came, even if these people woke up, they would be so hungry that they would have no strength left. Harry wasn't worried about these people at all. As long as he controlled the majority of the pirates who boarded the narwhal, he would be able to ask about their purpose for coming here. Henninger led his students with great care and trapped this group of people firmly. What Harry didn't expect was that Henninger's use of ropes was quite artistic. Hey, Henninger, you're really good at this, Harry teased. Henninger blushed and said in a low voice, I've done this before. I can tell that you're a master. Harry gave him a thumbs up. The one-eyed man and his men were tied to the railing on the deck and soon woke up. After all, they weren't attacked by the stink. They were only knocked out by strong electric current. After waking up, they were still a bit confused at first. When they saw their current situation and Harry and the others' unfriendly expressions, the one-eyed man knew that he had failed this time. Who is the person in charge here? Can you come out and speak? The boss asked. Although he had asked this question, his gaze had always been on Harry, because he felt that the one who could make the decision here was Harry. It wasn't because of anything else. It was because Harry had the aura of a leader. As expected, Harry stood out and said, I am. Do you have anything to say? The one-eyed man gave Harry a deep look and said, Who are you to treat me like this? I don't need to tell you my identity. As for who you are, I'm not interested in knowing. What I'm interested in is this. What are you doing here? Through the one-eyed man's words, Harry was certain that these people weren't here for him. They were probably looking for the treasure. Sure enough, the one-eyed man didn't hide anything. He said straightforwardly, We all have the same goal. Harry said, Oh, you are also here for the treasure? The one-eyed man nodded and spoke. Yes. I thought you would play dumb with me, Harry said with a smile. The one-eyed man smiled. There's no need for that. In any case, I've already been caught by you. However, I have a suggestion. Oh? Tell me. I know the exact location where the treasure's buried. Let me go, and we can work together to find the treasure. How about a 50-50 split? That's fair, right? Harry shook his head and spoke. How can you be sure that I don't know where the treasure is hidden? The one-eyed man also laughed. I've got the only treasure map. Harry smiled. Is that so? There's only one treasure map? Then take a look at what I have in my hand. As he spoke, he took out the parchment paper and shook it in front of the one-eyed boss. The one-eyed boss was immediately shocked. He widened his only eye and said in disbelief, How is this possible? How can there be a second treasure map? Since there are two, I don't need to work with you. The one-eyed man was silent. He had wanted to use the treasure map to tempt Harry to work with him. Once Harry let his guard down, the captain would attack. Only now did he realize that Harry didn't need him at all. Harry had another map that pointed to the same treasure. All right, I'm convinced. What are you going to do to me? Kill me? Harry said indifferently. Yep. Killing you would solve a lot of my problems, once you're dead. I'll have nothing to worry about. We're still useful to you." The one-eyed boss gave in. They began to plead for their lives. "How can you be of any use to me?" Harry asked. The one-eyed man quickly said, "The treasure's hidden under the sea. I brought diving equipment and digging equipment, so we can help dig up the treasure." Harry shook his head and spoke, "I have the equipment on my ship too, so I don't need yours. Besides, your ship is mine, and I can take whatever I want from it." Henninger and the others laughed. They felt that this one-eyed man was stupid. He was already captured and yet tried to make himself sound quite useful. The one-eyed man panicked. He felt that Harry really would kill them. He quickly said, "You still can't kill me. I can give you a ransom. I will pay you any amount of money that you want." Harry smiled again and pointed at the narwhal under his feet. "Look at my ship. Do you think I'm in need of money?" The one-eyed man smiled flatteringly and said, "Of course. The more money, the better." Harry said, "I have too much money now, so don't mention it to me. Think again. Is there anything else that makes you valuable?" Harry was playing with these people right now. He wouldn't kill them. Harry didn't have that much hostility. He just wanted to scare them. "Ugh, forget it. It's already come to this point. I won't hide it from you anymore. I'm actually a treasure hunter, looking all over the world for all kinds of treasures. If you're not interested in money, if you're interested in antiques, then I have some value." Harry asked, "Are there any antiques on your ship?" "No." Harry replied, "Are you kidding me?" "No. Although I don't have any antiques on my ship, I have clues about all kinds of treasures. I can give them all to you," Harry said in disbelief. "How can I be sure that all the clues you gave me were real? You could just lie to me." "It's true. I found treasure maps and records from all over the world, but some of them were hidden quite well, so I haven't had the time to look for them yet." Harry nodded. "As long as I see the proof, I'll be happy. Then let me go. I will give you the clues, and we won't interfere in each other's business," the one-eyed boss said in surprise. He also felt some pain in his heart. He had spent a lot of time and money to find the clues to these treasures. Now, Harry could take advantage of it. However, Harry still shook his head and said, "No." "Why? Didn't you agree already?" Harry said. "I said, your boat is already my spoils of war. What's on the boat is also mine now. So the clues you give me are still mine." The one-eyed man was dumbfounded. "You're being unreasonable." Usually, it was he who was being unreasonable. He didn't expect to meet Harry today, who was even more unreasonable than him. "That's it. You have to submit, even if you don't want to." "No, that's not right. I wrote down dozens of notes and various scraps of paper. You'll never know what any of it means without me." Harry thought for a moment. "Well, that does make sense. I'll let you live for now." Harry wasn't greedy for clues about treasures. However, since he had captured these people, he didn't want to kill them. He had to squeeze out something from them for their actions. Harry agreed to this condition. The one-eyed boss and the others were still tied to the railing by Harry. "You've already agreed. Why aren't you letting me go?" Harry said. "Why are you in such a hurry?" "I'll hold you till I find that treasure." After settling the matters here, Harry called Henninger and the others to start digging for treasure. Because the treasure was a few meters below the surface of the sea, digging for it was a little troublesome. However, it was fortunate that Harry was fully equipped and had a lot of people. He sat on the speedboat again and went to the reef where the treasure was hidden. "It takes a lot of effort to work underwater. There's enough oxygen, but we should split into 3 teams to dig," Harry said. When working, even people who often trained wouldn't be able to dig for more than half an hour. Harry and the others split into 3 teams and took turns digging in the water. The excavation work continued from morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Finally, it was Harry's turn to dig in the water. When the spade was clearing the seabed sand, it touched something hard. Harry bent down and used his hand to pull it out. He saw a large box buried in the sand. On the surface of the sea, Harry said to the person on the speedboat, "Found it. I saw a big box. There might be treasure inside." The man on the speedboat nodded. "Great! We found the treasure," he said. "We're going to be rich," he continued. Everyone cheered. This time, they didn't care about taking turns to rest. A few people who were waiting jumped into the water and went to dig for the treasure together. These boxes weren't small. It took a lot of effort to dig them out from the sand. It would be a lot of effort to move them onto the ship. Harry and the others found more than 20 boxes in total. All of them were 70 centimeters tall, 1 meter long, and half a meter wide. The boxes were made of oil wood. It could be seen that they were carefully embalmed when they were made. Therefore, even after being buried in the sea for so many years, they weren't completely corroded. However, the metal bars used to fix the box were rotten. Returning to the narwhal, the deck was filled with the loot of the treasure hunt. Looking at these large boxes, everyone was extremely excited. They were all fantasizing that it was filled with gold. How much would it be worth? The one-eyed boss, who was tied to the railings and watching from the side, hated seeing Harry's good fortune. This should have been his treasure. But unfortunately, he had to admit his bad luck.
Let's open the chest now and see what we've got.
Someone couldn't help but suggest. Hey, I think there should be a ceremony. Should we open a few bottles of wine to celebrate? A student asked. Harry didn't care about what was in the box. He had already dug it up. Now, he just wanted to open it. He immediately took out a crowbar and pried open the box. After the box was opened, it wasn't as everyone had imagined. It wasn't filled with shiny gold coins and gemstones dazzling everyone. Instead, the things inside were tightly wrapped by something that looked like a layer of tarp. It must be something to protect the contents from the water that might leak in, Henninger said to himself. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to him. At this time, everyone was staring at Harry, watching him to unwrap the tarp. In the end, even after the tarp was removed, there was still no gold shining from the treasure that they had imagined. It was actually filled with all kinds of iron swords and handguns. Where's the treasure? There's no gold, a student said. Harry looked at the things in the box thoughtfully. He already understood a little. He said to the others, All right, I won't open any more. You can all give it a shot. In the end, after the boxes were opened, there was still no silver or gold. There were more swords and handguns inside. Everyone immediately wailed endlessly. This is not a treasure at all. Or, it's just a treasure to the people who are buried, Harry said. He understood the moment he opened the first chest. This so-called treasure should be the weapon that the pirates had buried here in the past. To pirates, gold and silver were treasures, and weapons were treasures. Especially the standard quality weapons. It was very difficult for pirates to obtain them. To be able to obtain such a large batch was a huge fortune. After all, only with weapons could one be armed and snatch more wealth. After all this time, it turns out that this is the place where pirates used to bury their weapons. No wonder the embalming was done so carefully. Everyone wailed for a long time, but they had no choice but to accept this fact. They all sighed and squatted to the side, their faces full of disappointment. The one-eyed boss, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, felt comfortable this time. He didn't expect that the treasure was actually junk. Even though ancient weapons were considered antiques, they were still barely worth much. However, he still had to consider the cost and returns of the investment. Even if he sold things he dug up, he still couldn't collect the money it cost to drive the boat. Looking at the gloating look on the one-eyed man's face, Harry sneered. What are you smiling for? I'm not. I'm just as disappointed as you are, the one-eyed boss quickly explained. All right, the treasure's been found. You're useless now. Take your other clues and get out of here, Harry said. Okay, but you have to untie me first. Harry waved his hand and took out a knife to cut the rope. I'm warning you, don't have any evil thoughts. I will let your men go after you give me the clues. Yes, I'll give them to you. The one-eyed boss seemed honest on the surface, but he was still paying attention in his heart. He was thinking about how to fool Harry first, and then wait for his subordinates to break free before counterattacking. He could now see that besides Harry, none of these people on the ship were capable of fighting. They were all a group of students. When his men broke free and caught them unprepared, they'd take the ship in no time. After Harry let go of the one-eyed man, he asked him to go to his own ship to get some clues about the other treasures. The others were shocked, especially Henninger. He quickly advised Harry, Harry, you can't do that.
If you let these people go now, won't they just come after us again?
Harry said, "How can they?" Henninger shook his head.
Why not? These criminals aren't trustworthy. If we let them go now, they will attack us again.
Harry said with a smile, "What do you think we should do?"
Of course, we should tie them up and bring them back. We don't have many guards here. How can we stop these people?
Henninger said worriedly. Harry didn't say anything. He said faintly, "You said we can't stop them. Then how were they tied up?" Henninger was stunned. He had forgotten that these people were wiped out because of Harry's defenses. Moreover, it seemed that Harry wasn't the one that had beaten them all up. He just had to sit in the cockpit and use the narwhal's defenses to make the group of pirates fall unconscious. At this moment, Henninger had to admit that he was just scared.
Harry, it was my fault for not thinking about it. It's your ship. You're the one making the decisions.
Henninger immediately flattered him. Although he was very worried about his personal safety and was very afraid of being caught by these pirates, Henninger had made a lot of money through his research. He was just nervous that the pirates would try to ransom him off for all his money. Henninger was a stingy person. Now he finally understood. Harry could let these people go. He wasn't afraid that they would come back for no good reason. Speaking of which, the first thing that the one-eyed man did after returning to his ship wasn't go to his own cabin to get clues about the treasures. He first went to check on the situation of the people guarding the ship. Ever since he woke up, he'd been wondering why the other people guarding the ship didn't react when he was knocked unconscious. With this question in mind, he looked for the cabin. When he opened the cabin door, the strong stench almost knocked him over. Fortunately, he reacted in time and closed the cabin door immediately. Otherwise, he would have been knocked unconscious again.
What's that smell?
The one-eyed man was both shocked and angry. The moment he opened the hatch, he saw it clearly. All of the guards of the ship were inside. Unfortunately, everyone was on the ground. To be more precise, everyone had fainted from the stench. They were all unconscious with their mouths foaming. He had no idea where this smell was coming from. After thinking about it, the one-eyed man felt there was only one explanation that could explain it. Harry had done it. However, the one-eyed man still couldn't understand how Harry, who had been on his own ship, had been able to spread the stench in the cabin of the Storm. The one-eyed man seemed complacent that he had no idea how Harry was able to do the things he did, which meant that Harry could do many terrible things if he wanted. The one-eyed man didn't have the ability to take over an entire ship by himself. Although he was very afraid of Harry, the one-eyed man had no intention of working with Harry. He had his own thoughts. He felt that if he could get close enough, he would be able to take Harry in close combat. His subordinates were currently tied up on Harry's boat. Once he brought the clues over and negotiated with Harry, he'd have his men untied and then take the narwhal by surprise. After making up his mind, the one-eyed man took out the clues from the treasures in his cabin and returned to Harry's boat.
"I have brought the clues back. You will let my men go, right?"
the one-eyed man said, while holding his notebook in his hand. Harry slowly said, "What are you in a hurry for?" "Let me see if what you have is real or not."
"This is real. Don't you believe me?"
The one-eyed man stared. Harry sneered and said, "Why should I believe you?" The one-eyed man said angrily,
"How would you even know if they're fakes?"
Harry said, "This is not your problem. You have no choice now. Either you give me the clues, or your men will be fed to the sharks." Harry couldn't tell if it was real or fake, but Harry didn't care. The only thing he was interested in about the so-called treasure clues was that his sister seemed to like it. Harry only wanted his sister to be happy. Many people thought that after obtaining the treasure clues, it would be the same as getting rich. Putting aside the question of how much value the treasure had, if one wanted to search for treasure, at the very least, this task wasn't something that one person could complete. If one person could take out the treasure, this meant that the amount of treasure was pitifully small. Thus, treasure seeking requires teamwork. This was unavoidable. The more people there were, the less treasure they would receive on average. Furthermore, the cost of treasure hunting would usually outweigh the money gained from finding the treasure. Treasure hunting wasn't cheap. Crews, transportation, equipment, and necessities all added to the cost of the hunt. Most treasure hunters had to have significant financial backing to even attempt to find treasure. More often than not, these people would never find the treasure.